Good evening. Welcome to the RSU 14 Wyndham Raymond School District Board of Directors meeting. The date of the meeting is September 15th, 2021. We are in the Raymond Elementary facilities. No, we're not. Yes, we are. I'm sorry, I'm reading off of the top of the tour. We just completed our tour over at RES, and now we're moving into our regular agenda. We're in the Raymond Broadcast Modular. I'd like to call the meeting to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Kate Brooks,
Yes?
Jenny Butler,
Present.
Marge Gavoni,
Present.
Pete Hensler,
Here.
Char Jewell,
Here.
Kate Levier,
Here.
Scott McLean,
Here.
Mike McClellan,
Present. Al
Potter,
Here.
Christina Small.
Here. Thank you. Will you please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Any adjustments to the agenda, Mr. Howell?
We don't have any adjustments to the agenda tonight.
Thank you. We're going to move into public input. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on items that are not on the agenda. We're going to continue our protocol of 3 minutes per person. And if you would please state your name and where you live. We welcome your comments. Anyone wish to speak?
Hello, my name is Matthew Murphy. I am a resident of Wyndham, and I do have a child in the Wyndham school system. The item that's not on the topic that I wish to discuss briefly is the mandates currently going on for the masking, everything like that. I do understand that there are some people that are at risk and therefore wish to keep the mandates going on. And I'm under the assumption here, if I'm not mistaken, it's still CDC guidelines that they want to go by. Under, let's see here, CDC website as of 8/4/21, which was 42 days ago, the CDC guidance is meant to supplement, not replace, any federal, state, or local, territorial, or tribal health and safety laws, rules, or regulations. And as such, 14th Amendment, Section 1, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and therefore and of the state they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Key part there, liberty. Also, according to the CDC guidelines there, school administrators can promote health equality by ensuring all students, teachers, and staff have resources to support physical and mental health. And if there is a staff member that doesn't feel safe in an unmasked setting, it also says here, administrators can offer modified job responsibilities for staff at higher risk for severe illness. The reason I state these is because currently, right now, according to the Maine government website, updated 9/7, 6 days ago, Wyndham, Maine, using the zip code 04062, there is a 99% vaccination rate for this area. Also, according to the same website, our county has the highest vaccination rate of over 75%, which was updated just yesterday. We have a high vaccination rate, therefore, if anyone does feel unsafe, please go mask up. But for people that are already vaccinated or already immune due to previous exposure, I believe should be open to maybe not masking in school, seeing how they're low risk. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Hi, I'm Dr. Robin Frost from Wyndham. I have a child in middle school. I have 2 questions and an announcement. The first question I have is I would like to know where the guidelines came from to cutting holes into the masks of the band students when they're playing their instruments. And just curious, I just want to make sure that was that something that came down from the CDC, and that was according to the CDC that told band directors to have all the children cut masks in the holes in their masks to play instruments? And if so, I would love to see that information.
We'll be glad to answer. That actually comes off was a recommendation by the Maine Music Educators Association, which was then recommended by the National Federation of School Bands as a way to help kids maintain music and instruments during COVID.
Okay, so my question would be, if that decision was being made, does that have to be presented to the people that it affects, which are the children and the parents?
It's a recommendation of a best practice to maintain a band program.
So again, you do not have to have a general consensus of letting people know that that's going to occur, and that's something that you decided. Did you decide that as a group, as a school board group, solely as a superintendent? What?
That was a decision that the music teachers and the RSU 14 came together so that they could continue the music program. It's also the same protocol that students will use if they participate in any of the state or national festivals for music.
Okay. The second question that I had was, when I first approached, given the fact that my daughter has a compromising medical condition that really hampers her wearing masks for extended period of time, I was told that they would have many mask breaks. So as of the beginning of the year, the mini mask breaks actually dwindled down to 2 mask breaks, which just recently dwindled down to 1 mask break. And again, where is the notification to the parents in regards to that? When will it go down to 0 mask breaks? Because we were under the assumption that, complying with what was supposed to happen, that our children would be exposed to be able to be outside and take mask breaks on a regular basis. And now it's down to, as of the new schedule, 1 mask break during the entire day. And who made that decision?
Right now, I met with all the building, I'm going to go ahead and answer. I met with all the building administrators. They're working at ways to increase the number of mask breaks into the start of school as they work out the year.
But how come the number is going down? Because it started with several, is what I was told when I first had to figure out what I was going to do with 2 weeks' notice that this was going to happen.
So they're working to increase the number of mask breaks that take place.
Okay, so when will that occur?
I will need to check in with the school administrators. If you send me an email, I'll be happy to.
Okay.
Dr. Frost, I'm sorry your time is over.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Who's up?
Hey folks, Mike Pasquini, Wyndham resident, and I have a question that just popped in my head today, driving home from the golf course with my kids, actually. I remember at the last meeting I attended, actually the first meeting I attended, there was discussion around legalities of kids having to be in school, kids of a school age having to be in school legally. And I guess my question is, what legal grounds does a school board have to impose a mask mandate? As I understand, mandates are not law. What legal grounds does a school board have to mandate a kid to have to wear a mask for a full day that either can't in some cases or doesn't wish to? What are the grounds of that?
Title 20A, Section 1001. I think it's Section 2, which gives the rights and the authority to school boards to set policies for health and safety.
Okay.
Main statute, Title 20A.
Okay, cool. Yep, thank you. Just something popped in my head. Thanks for your answer.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have any?
Hey, Derek Clary, resident of Wyndham. While we're on the subject of masks, I'd like to ask, did RSU 14 implement independent policies regarding coronavirus restrictions or protocols, or did they adopt based on the American Rescue Plan protocol through the federal Department of Education?
Yeah, and American Rescue Plan and Maine CDC don't have any components of each other. The only thing required for the American Rescue Plan is that school districts have a plan for school reopening and getting the greatest number of students in. Maine Department of Education made a recommendation for districts to adopt national CDC guideline. The guidelines they established are heavily, heavily built upon that. As far as RSU 14, we've adopted everything except where we are not currently engaged in pool testing.
Okay, and did that have any, did that restrict or enable your, the funding in the American Rescue Plan?
No.
You know, I was under the impression you had to qualify for and follow federal
Yeah,
coronavirus guidelines.
it's a great question. Under elementary, secondary schools emergency recovery relief fund,
Yep.
Under ESSER 1 and 2, and we are going to be presenting ESSER 3 tonight. Under ESSER 1 and 2, there was a requirement that you adopt all 6 components of the state requirements. ESSER 3 does not have that requirement, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Glad to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Carrie Grant, and I am a Wyndham parent. I guess my question today is, what does the end look like? We have, as this gentleman stated, a very high vaccination rate in our county and in Wyndham itself. So can we maybe take a look at that and see, you know,
Yep, and if I
What
can
we
speak
have
to them, we've had 15, if not 16 cases. I have to go back to the dashboard so far. Masking has kept 252 students out of quarantine. Today is the first day that I've not reported a case since we started school.
Great.
And it's the first day we've not had to do contact tracing and all those calls. So I think my grand hope is that I've been living now, as all of you, the last 19 months of a lot of peaks and valleys. I'm hoping that the first week of school was a peak and that we're heading towards a valley and we can start moving towards those things. As I've shared with all sorts of people, my number one aim is keeping kids in school and not having to quarantine them. And right now we've kept 250 some odd kids in school because of a masking exemption. And I just would have hated to have had all those students sitting home for 5, 6, 7, 8 days, not being able to access their education.
so that's the goal come winter when it starts getting, you know, a lot higher cases as we see.
We also have student, younger kid vaccination, and I just clarify, the number that I included in my PowerPoint for opening was actually wrong for 53% unvaccinated. It's actually higher. I was counting 6th graders as age eligible, and I think we have 4 6th graders who are actually eligible for vaccination. So 250 kids per grade level, so 250 divided by 3120, there's the extra percentage. We're probably close to 58, 59% that aren't vaccinated. So I think that's another big milestone to hit. I would love to go sometimes without cases, because we have our nurses and our administrators who are working every weekend now, keeping kids in school.
So is there a plan set yet for an end to this, or is there a percentage that you guys want to see vaccinated throughout the RSU 14 school system in order to put an end to the mask?
I can't give you an exact number at this point. I would love to be able to do that. Honestly, when we were dealing with 3 cases statewide in July, I was hoping we're at the end, I think like everybody else, and the spike that we were at, if we're down low cases statewide and we're not dealing with hospitalizations and other issues, right now our biggest issue is that we have families that are sick and kids are getting sick at home and it's impacting other students at school, and my worry still is other kids impacting someone else than having to go home.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
I have a few questions. Joel Woodward, Wyndham. My first question about contact tracing. Have you actually been able to track anything back to the school system as far as the origination of a COVID case?
For the 16 cases to date, I would say no, that we've not been able to track back.
Okay. My other question is, my son is coming home and telling me that his teacher keeps speaking about everybody needs to get vaccinated. I wish you would get vaccinated. You kids need to be vaccinated. That lights my fuse big time. No school faculty member should be talking to my son about anything medical, vaccination-wise. Should not happen. It is not your place. You're there to teach. I appreciate what you do. It should not be brought up. That's out of line. What I feel and my wife feels, that's our business with our kid. No teachers. They don't need to be talking about whether or not a student should be getting vaccinated or not. You don't know my son's medical history, whether or not he can handle vaccines well. Some people don't. Never had an issue, but I don't want to start now. It's not a teacher's place. Keep your opinion about the vaccine to yourself. That's all I ask. And one other thing, like most kids, he pulls his mask down under his nose, you know. So we got sent to the principal's office. And apparently if it happens again, I'll be getting a phone call. These kids struggle with masks. I know for mine, it drives them nuts. It's very distracting for them. I would hope that teachers would be a little more understanding. I know it's tough because there's so many kids per class. Give them a break. You know, let them go take this thing off its face for a minute, take a breath of air.
Yes.
You know, coming from an industrial background, loose-fitting masks, these masks are made for a doctor who doesn't know which knee to cut open and drop his gum in your body. It's not going to stop a particle. It's just not. I can bring you in a room. We can do some sanding with a large particle mask that is much more form-fitting than yours. I guarantee you when you take that mask off, you're going to be blowing all kinds of crud out of your nose. And those are made specifically for large particles. If you put one of these masks on and come in a room and do some sanding, anything, a dusty environment, you're going to be full of it. And just from a common sense standpoint, these masks are, in my opinion, they're useless.
Thank you, sir.
And they're a distraction.
Anyone else? We all set with public participation? All right, item number 6. It gives me great pleasure. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Jody Carroll. She is the Raymond Chair of the PTO, and she's going to present an update to the board. I just want to, in advance, thank you for all that you do in your organization. I know you're doing a membership drive right now, and you're going to tell us all about the great things that you do and why you should join.
I'm going to keep my mask on, but I'm smiling if my eyes aren't doing that. My kids keep telling me that my forehead looks like it needs to be ironed, so if my eyes are smiling, then my face is smiling too. Thank you for the invitation. Just want to provide a quick update on behalf of Raymond Schools PTO. I did want it to be very clear and keep you on schedule, so I did script. I hope that's okay. My name's Jody Carroll. I do live in Raymond. I'm a Canadian and moved to Raymond 5 years ago. My husband's a Mainer, and he brought me back with him. He was with me in Canada for 10 years, and we're back here with our 4 boys, 3 of which currently attend Raymond Elementary. I've been a member of the PTO for several years. Such things don't exist in Canada. It just doesn't happen. I don't know why. So I was super excited to be introduced to the PTO when we moved here. Recently joined the board in the spring, so we're a new board this year. The previous board served through COVID. It's a really tough time for them, but new board elected in the spring with a view to work alongside the fabulous team of administrators, educators, parents, guardians, and the students, of course, within RSU 14 in a collaborative way with pride. As a registered nonprofit organization, the Raymond Schools PTO does serve Raymond Elementary and Jordan's small middle schools. And just want to point out that we are a nonprofit. The PTAs or other organizations don't always go to get the 501(c) classification, so we are a nonprofit in the community. Although our mission statement does serve the schools directly, we are a partner that we hope across the whole community that we can partner with different organizations. So our goals are pretty simple. We foster relationships between the educators themselves, parents and guardians, and the students. Those are kind of our 3 key players. We enhance the educational environment. We do raise funds for educational materials and experiences. So we have a grant request process, and educators come to us and ask for resources to improve or to get something that they otherwise wouldn't be able to have for their facility. We do recruit volunteers, and we kind of coordinate those efforts for programs and projects that do support and enrich the teacher's curriculum, the educational curriculum, and the goals of the schools. And finally, we do our part in building a strong sense of community through connection. So we're looking for collaboration, whether it's through Be the Influence or Parks and Rec or whoever's out there trying to connect the pieces of our community together. We're hoping to be part of that connection. We feel that the key to achieving these simple goals is to serve our students and educators at that intersection of our greatest passions and our greatest strengths collectively. So if we put those two things together, and we're trying to get right in the smack dab middle of those two things, what are we good at and what are we trying to do? In order to do that this year, we have relied on our educators to lead the way. We are an independent organization, but really if we're coming up alongside the educators, we have to let them lead. So we've gone ahead and done that, and we've asked how we can support their efforts in a mutually beneficial way. Our programming this year will be a mix of in-person and socially distanced activities. We're shifting our original plans. We had a great plan together, but we have to shift just like everybody. We recognize that the possibility of restricted access to the students for dances, book fairs, and other activities that are so dear to ourselves and our kiddos that are traditionally held inside might change. We remain cautiously optimistic and are doing some concurrent planning for additional events that have not been finalized in the wake of this possibility. So what I'm trying to say is we had a whole plan together and we're just kind of crossing our fingers, right? So in July, we're all set, right? We're doing dances, we're doing book fairs, we're doing all this stuff. So in the meantime, once our events are finalized, we've launched a new website that we hope will be a really nice interface for grant requests, scholarships, for our membership to contact us, but also to keep up on, when we're meeting and what we're doing out in the community. That's RaymondSchoolsPTO.org, and you can check us out there. So here's some of the things that we're doing and have been doing. We certainly would participate in the school open houses for Raymond Elementary and Jordan Small. We've gone ahead and done an ice cream social, and man, was that great to have all those kids there smiling, ice cream, everyone's outside. It rained, they did not care. They're outside in the rain eating ice cream. That was great. The open houses are a wonderful way for us to spread awareness about our mission, and it helps us meet our goal. We are on a membership drive to get to 75 members this year. We are at 43 as of today. So the members are the bones of our organization. So although there is a board, we have a membership that we highly value, and we thank Mr. McClellan for joining. Thank you very much. We appreciate your membership. We invite all the board and anyone here to join our team, as well as anyone that that's in the Raymond community or otherwise. The dues do help us meet our financial goals of $12,000 this year as our budget. But more importantly, we do benefit from your extensive institutional knowledge and would really value your input, even if it was just joining our meetings and giving us some input on kind of your perspective in the community. So those are a few things that we could benefit from you. The membership is $15 annually. We meet for 1 hour once a month. So we're doing that on Zoom. We try to keep it super tight, couple social events hopefully this year, if we can get out there and do something fun. This year we have a little competition, so the grade level that has the most parents, educators, guardians that join, that grade level is going to get a $300 gift card, and for them to use at their discretion. So we're hoping that you can spread the word and consider joining, especially your friends and family in this area. So we've shifted to kind of some outdoor stuff. This is going to sound a little loosey-goosey, but just putting it out there, this is the stuff we're thinking about for outside. Fall Festival. Can we get with Raymond Parks and Recs in a collaborative way to do a Halloween event? So it's outside, big space. Tasseltop Park's a gorgeous place to meet. They've got the field, the movie theater. I hope it's not snowing, but we're thinking just, my kids wouldn't care, but I'm just saying, getting outside. We're thinking about a collaborative event there to provide, the goal with this event would be to provide an outdoor activity area for kids and families. And really, maybe a little fundraising, we're not totally sure, but again, it meets that goal of community connection and enriching experiences for kids. 3-on-3 basketball tournament. This was suggested as kind of a really fun outdoor, get with a little team, make a t-shirt, let's kind of do the, what do they call them, the brackets, you know, have the brackets and have people get together. So we've had a couple of educators that are thinking about helping us out with that. Sounds like a lot of fun to me. I'm terrible at basketball, but my kids I know would love this. And again, our goal with this is to provide a fun environment. It promotes exercise for children in a safe way, and it can be coordinated by one of our partners, the educators. We would love that. So we're not sure on timeline for that, but that's something we've got put out there. Scholastic Book Fair is near and dear to my heart. It's something that I've worked with the schools in the last couple of years. Our goal with this fundraising event is to foster students' love for literacy. I know that that aligns very well with RSU 14. I've loved the focus on literacy since I've moved stateside. This fair allows us to hand out gift certificates to teachers. It also allows us to, with discretion, provide gift certificates for free books to children that maybe aren't able to purchase books. So that's really neat. Facilitate author reads. We give books to the librarian. And then most importantly, there's a reward for scholastic dollars to the librarian herself. So in this case, Shirley Jackson over at Raymond, Mariah does hers over at GSMS. They're awarded with several $100,000 depending on the season and how many book fairs we do to purchase from the Scholastic catalog library-bound quality books so that they can bring them in. And I know that Shirley Jackson's updating her state resources from the 1980s. So I mean, it's a real initiative, and it's something that we want to be so proud to connect with because we want our kids obviously to have up-to-date information. So I love the Scholastic Book Fair. Winter event, we would love if we could get someone to tell us that it would be okay to have all kinds of kids sleighing out on some hill, whether it's the back of Raymond or otherwise. Winter event, we're thinking something to facilitate that, something that promotes this sort of fun and active outdoor winter lifestyle in, again, a safe way. Unless my kids are there, I think, with sleds. I'm thinking snowshoes with the spikes on the bottom, but if you've met my little Charlie, you would know why. So sledding, snowshoeing, cider, snacks, you know, kind of like that outdoor, everyone kind of gets together and is outside somewhere doing sledding. So we're gonna try to get that put together. And we can kind of do that on a pickup, you know, just if we've got snow, then let's do it, you know, put that together kind of last minute. Spring events yet to finalize, but we certainly would look forward to these things. Teacher appreciation, we're absolutely doing in May. Spring community event, we would love to do bike safety, vendors, outdoor fun. We want to do something in the spring that's more community oriented, and we're going to cross our fingers and work toward that pretty aggressively. Caitlin Lacasse is going to handle that, so I know it will be fabulous. Scholastic Book Fair in the spring. Again, that would be our second book fair. We do that with Grandparents' Day. Oh my word, I did that the first year, and there were hundreds and hundreds of grandparents. You know, it's an unbelievable turnout. So we'll look toward that. And finally, and not least, bring your special person dances. So we're going to switch that language a little bit instead of mom, son, etc. Bring a special person. We're hoping to do 2 events. We may need to do them outside with a tent, or we're not sure. But we missed them last year. We're going to try not to miss them this year. So those are some of our programs. In addition, our organization fully funds field trips for grades K all the way through to grade 8, pre-K depending, but K to 8 yearly. So teachers request funds from us. We write them a check, they go do something fun with our kids. Again, we're not sure if that will happen this year, but we're certainly going to work toward it so that even if by the spring they all want to go, Portland Symphony Orchestra for the music team, wherever they're going, if we need to be ready so that if they're ready and they can go, they're going to go. So we do that every year, and we proudly support graduating Raymond seniors as they pursue their post-secondary school programs through our scholarship program. This one's a little bit hard to get your arms around, but the reality is in small towns like this, I didn't know this, but it's just that you're going to meet someone that's been here for their whole life, and then they graduated from here, and they might live over there now, but they're still Raymond residents, and so those scholarships are so important, and I have 4, so one's through, 3 more to go, right? Every dollar does matter, right? So we're very proud to continue to support that. Lastly, we're interested in pursuing a fundraiser that would span the Raymond and Windham communities. I would love feedback on this as there's time, that focuses on diverting old textiles, in this case shoes, through an organization. Essentially what they do is they collect shoes and they divert them to entrepreneurs in third world countries, and then they sell them in their local market. That's the idea of it. This program, in our view, would connect our children here to the disparities in the world in an appropriate way. We hope this knowledge would work to spark generosity in the hearts of our kiddos and a sense of doing something impactful for the environment by diverting textiles and for other children across the world. We hope if this is an initiative we can operationally support, that RSU 14 and the community at large would support us through the donation of gently used and new shoes. The thresholds for some of this are, 300 bags of 25 shoes. And they pay by the pound, 40 cents a pound. So it goes for 3 months. And in my mind, I'm thinking the whole community. And then there's kind of storage or drop-off areas. You bag them, and then they pick them up within 45 days. They weigh them, and they literally cut a check back to the community or to the organization. So this is my big, I did the silent auction in the spring, and it was like no one would touch it, but that was something that I took a lot of pride. I loved it. It was fun. But it does take a bit of work. So this is something that we hope we would have a lot of support in the community with if we were able to put it together. And that's it. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Happy to answer any questions, but I just want to say thank you so much for the invitation.
Holy cow, Jody. Unbelievable. Bravo. I tell you, one of the goals of the board in conjunction with our strategic plan is to foster connections with the community and with parents. And you are really a pivotal piece of that. So I look forward to some conversations with maybe you or the board to see how we can help you and you can help us with our goal.
That'd be great. I appreciate that so much.
Very
Thank
exciting
you.
stuff.
Great
Thank
job.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 7, RSU 14, School Resource Officer Update. We have before us Matt Sear, Seth Fournier, and a young gentleman, I don't know your name.
Josh Noyes.
Josh, welcome. They are here to present an update on School Resource Officer, and I'm going to let Mr. Howell.
Still in.
Still in, okay.
First of all, just want to, Jody, thank you for everything on that list. What amazing opportunities for the community to be able to do those things. But also excited tonight to have an update for the board on the School Resource Officer program. We have been blessed to have a School Resource Officer for Windham High School since roughly, I think it was 2004, 2005, when a grant, juvenile justice grant was done for the initial SRO position that Jeff Smith took and then occupied for a number of years. And then that position, when Jeff retired and left us, Seth Fournier took that position, I want to say 14, 15, Seth, somewhere in there?
68.
Okay, so pretty close on that. And in addition to that, for as long as, I think, Matt, you and I first met in 99, 2000, when you first came as a community service officer to the town of Windham, and has been serving and teaching DARE and DARE to Adventure under that community service officer title. 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, I know we have this lost year that sometimes we have a hard time with, but Lynette Hain and Christine and a group of other people got together and worked on a grant for a COPS grant, Mike Duffy as well, and we were able to secure funds for an additional school resource officer. Unfortunately, COVID hit, which also meant the academy closed, and the town of Windham, which was then looking to add an additional officer to fill the resource position, couldn't do that because couldn't actually put anyone through the pipeline. So we were stalled for a little bit, and happy to report that last spring things started to open up again. A couple officers entered the pipeline, and Matt Sear was selected to be the school resource officer to cover the 2 middle schools. And so we are absolutely blessed to have 2 wonderful individuals who I've known for a long, long time. And as I've shared previously, count as friends, having known and worked with them on many student situations and community things over the years. But they have huge hearts for kids. In addition to their SRO positions, they are out in the community and they're serving either through coaching or through connections or through trips. And they are available to kids 24/7 in their roles and their positions. And it is not uncommon to walk through the buildings and see kids actively seeking out our SROs and have built some very, very strong relationships. Also want to mention Seth, because this is a new position this year, is the official coach for our game. What is the official title of the program, Seth?
Our varsity esports team.
Varsity esports team, and is now the official coach. of that, which will allow some kids to enter into some MPA competition for a new opportunity. So at this point, Matt and Seth, Josh, I'm going to turn it over to you guys and have a chance to talk through. It's going to be a tough fall.
You said everything I was going to say.
We're not script guys, so I apologize for that. It's not really my strong suit. It's good to see everybody and the people that I don't know. It's good to meet you. Superintendent Howell said already, I'm Seth Winter. I have been your school resource officer for 6 years now. I think Matt is 20-something, 26 years, something like that. Official SRO for 2 months. We have quite a few roles, so I'm going to try to not take up too much time and give you guys some chance for questions. I'm sure we might have a few. Superintendent, I teach classes. I'm currently teaching a period 1 class, Law and You, co-teaching that. It's been a fun class for the past couple of years, and it's usually very well attended. Good field trips. The kids seem to enjoy that. Coaching, I'm actually the JV lacrosse coach in the spring, and like Superintendent Howell said, I'm now the varsity esports coach. That has been fantastic. It's a great group of kids. It's been exciting for me to get some kids that don't really know athletic competition, to get them kind of rolling into the same kind of state as my lacrosse players. It's all the same stuff, MPA sponsored, they have to have the grades, they have to have physicals.
And incredibly fit thumbs.
Yes. One of the things that I'm pushing for this, being someone who has participated in those things my entire adult life, is balance. They need to know that they can do those things and still be functioning members of society. So we have daily workouts. Wednesday, we don't even get behind screens. We're in the weight room. So all those things are really good for those kids to do that kind of stuff. I'm looking right now to set up a flag football match with the football team at the end of the year, just to see how that goes. But I do a little police work on the side. One of our major functions is in fact the physical security of all of our RSU 14 buildings. So I work closely with our safety team, Christine Bernay, Mike Duffy, Bob Hickey, Bill Hansen, Matt, myself, and one of our supervisors to get all that stuff rolling. I've kind of taken upon a large role of our emergency operations planning that we will present, I think, in a couple months to you guys. Matt and I do all the safety training for all staff in the district, students, and then on that front, just the day-to-day security of all the buildings. It says on here middle schools and high school, but we also serve both primary schools, obviously in different roles, but I'm still making sure that all the young ones are safe too. This week I made my first foray up into Raymond. We're still kind of working on that, but I talked with Randy and Beth to kind of figure that out, see what's going to go with that. And I'm really excited that now, because of our new position, we get to get officially up into Raymond and we can kind of be there to support them in our roles as SROs. Yeah, I guess I'll let Matt talk a little bit about Daily Adventure.
Sure. So I know some of you know me pretty well because I've been around for 100 years, but my name is Matt Sear. I have for the last 22 years served as the Community Services Officer, DARE Officer for the community, known as the DARE Officer and the guy that does the adventure program at the middle school, and I got the skate park started years ago. And I can tell you that over the last 22 years, it's been quite the journey and quite the learning lesson as far as working within schools. And I think that I've seen not just Seth, but Jeff Smith before that, and myself before that, come into a school and they're like, we're bulls in a china shop. We're like, yeah, we're going to save the world. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And you really have to realize that schools are a different place. And they're a great place. And even though you're full of all that energy and wanting to be that bull in a china shop, you got to dial it back a little bit and learn how things work within a school district. And I have to tell you that it has been my extreme pleasure to work with Windham School Department and now RSU 14. We can't do what we do without the support of the building administrators, the community as a whole, the teachers, the custodians, the school board. We just can't do it. We go to the National School Resource Officer Conference every year, thank you, by the way, and we start talking to school resource officers from across the country, and they hear what we're able to do within our district, and they're blown away. And they just can't get over the support that we have, not just from the school board, but the town council, as well as the community as a whole too. And I wanted to thank you guys for that. How's my role changing now that I'm no longer the community services officer, and now the school resource officer? Well, I didn't think there was going to be a single change at all. But I will tell you that in the first beginning weeks of school, the biggest change for me has been that I feel more, I don't want to say this, more comfortable, and that I have more ownership in the schools. And I know that's kind of crazy to hear, but before I felt like a visitor. Not that I felt like a visitor, don't take that the wrong way, but I didn't feel like it was my responsibility or for me to own a lot of the safety and security things. I would always make suggestions. Now I'm more comfortable as a school resource officer to walk in and say, well, this is really what we need to be doing, folks. Okay, and I'm seeing some pretty drastic changes in what's happening within our buildings. I'm still going to do DARE at Manchester School, so I will be there quite frequently doing that. I'm going to do DARE here at Wyndham Middle School, and I hope to, once we figure out the logistics of the time that we need to share with Raymond, to get up here and put DARE in 7th grade and in 5th grade for these two schools. Again, I think we're gonna have some growing pains in figuring that all out in this first year or so, but that is definitely the plan. And then, of course, we've got the adventure program at the middle school that we do that I'm quite proud of, because pretty much I've created it. So it's a program that is aimed at 7th and 8th grade boys and girls, and it's an outdoor leadership program. We bring them whitewater rafting, whitewater kayaking, ropes courses, rock climbing. It's a very small group, so we end up doing a lot of mentoring. And as you can see, sometimes I have some high school kids that come back and help and be leaders for the program. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I know I said I've been here for 100 years. You might get a couple more out of me, but I'm going to start training new people up too at the same time to come in. So, Josh, if you want to say a few words about the effects of dealing with DARE and school resource officers.
So I've been in the program for 5 years, I think, for DARE Adventure. And it's a very good program. Do a lot of things like outdoor stuff, and it's got me out of drugs and alcohol for high school, and I feel like it's been good.
If any of you saw some of the videos of a kayaker going down over a big waterfall on Facebook, and then another one that's being stuck in a hole, paddling around a red, white, and blue boat, that's this battery. He kept trying to get me to go into the same hole, and I'm like, I'm not doing it. So.
Josh, thanks for sharing your thoughts. It's always great to hear from the student perspective. Aside from these two dudes, it's nice to hear your experience. So thanks for coming before us this evening. And thanks to both of you guys. Any questions? Yep.
So I just had a couple of questions for you two gentlemen. How do you guys deal with maybe a student or a parent that might come up to you that might have conflicting views on what an SRO does for the school, and how would you guys possibly diffuse that situation? What type of educational information would you give that person?
So I think sometimes people are confused, and there's been the school to prison pipeline theory that's been out there in the past, that we are only in there to try to gain information and gain knowledge, not just about kids but their families also, and our ultimate goal is to put people in jail. I think what I would do, what I have done in the past is educate them about what our roles and responsibilities are. I mean, reality of it is, and if you look at the NASRO, NASRO is the National Association of School Resource Officers. If you look at their Trinity, I guess they call it, it's counselor, educator, police officer. And it kind of goes in that, these two first, informal counselor, educator, police officer, and police officer kind of comes in last place every time. We both go out of our way to keep from putting handcuffs on kids. We both, and I hate to speak for Seth, but I think I can safely do this here. We both make a point of doing what we can to educate kids to, well, let me give you a perfect example. Just today, we were having an issue with a student at the middle school. And as we were trying to figure out why the student was acting the way they were, I was able to give input as to, well, this person's home life, he's struggling with some stuff going on at home, and I was able to get into some detail about that stuff with the educators. They're then able to take some of that information that they have in that particular situation, in this particular situation, and they can kind of curb their approach and their discussions with the kid to figure out the why of why that person's behaving that way, and then put supports in place to help that student change that behavior and stay in school. And sometimes without that information, the educators wouldn't necessarily have that. And I have the benefit of working for the Wyndham Police Department for 27 years now. And I know this town, I know a lot of people in it, and my God, I'm teaching DARE to kids whose parents I taught DARE at this point. It's weird, you know what I mean, right, Jenny?
Yeah.
But the point being is that having this community approach to how we can help educate the kids and keep them in school, or maybe even go and get them to school, that wouldn't happen without the involvement of us and the resources that we're able to bring to the table. And do we sometimes have to make arrests? Yes. But believe me, every option has been exhausted before that ever happens. So,
Okay.
and I think when people hear that, it makes a difference for them because they understand we're not in there to, plus it's a bowl of paperwork when we arrest people. I don't do that. Okay?
Right.
Reality is, point is, we're there to support the students. We're not there to just get stats and write numbers.
Okay. All right.
Jenny?
A quick follow-up to Scott's question. It does concern me if you have been approached by parents or community members on a regular basis questioning what you're doing in the school system. So my question to you, has that happened very often, or?
No, and I'll come back to a statement I made earlier. Again, I'm speaking for Seth here. I'll go back to what I said earlier. The community support has been just incredible for not only me, I would say for Seth, as well as Jeff Smith.
Okay.
We've just rarely do we have some parents that are very upset with what we do. We're not perfect by any means. Believe me, this is a learning process. And we're dealing with people, so you never know what's going to be served up to you. So,
Well, I can tell you that you and Jeff were certainly part of my now adult son's life in the school system, and they are very grateful for that.
thank you, that's nice to hear.
I can tell you, including Scott just now, I can probably only count them on one hand, the amount of people that actually ask that question. In passing, usually. And for me, it's just education. I try to put myself out there as much as I possibly can.
Good.
You know, highlight all the good things that we do.
I think there's just if I can speak, there's another component to it, which is that it's not the officer that pulls you over in North Wyndham or coming up 85 and you have a 5-minute interaction with them. I mean, these two individuals and also other members of the Wyndham Police Department have done a nice job of getting into the schools, building relationships. These are long-term relationships. Kids see them inside of school, outside of school. They're there at their hardest moments. They're there at their best moments. They're picking them up on some of those things. And honestly, I think kids that I've watched my time in the high school, kids also see them as a confidant or somebody when there is a legal issue they're involved with to get some advice on how to best navigate through that system. So it's only, I mean, community policing is about relationships. And a good community policing program has relationships, and they're not fake relationships. They're time that people take to actually get to know individuals. And they know these kids, grades 4 through 12 on the Wyndham side. I'm excited that we can share some of that on the Raymond side now with the addition of the grant.
And it's good. It's great. There's 3 incidents this week in which I could have written a citation, which we just didn't do. Right? It's all about finding correct supports for kids, especially if it's drug related. How do we get them the counseling that they need? How do we fix the problem? It's not giving them a citation and a court date. It's just not what we do. I will say that there's obviously a lot of buzz in the media about us, SROs in general. The Maine Criminal Justice Academy has started a certification course for that. We're obviously both NASRO certified. I'm NASRO Basic and Advanced certified. So I just taught at this class at the Academy to teach new SROs. So one of the big focuses for us right now is having the right person with the right training in the building. You're not just sticking the new guy in there when no one else wants to go. So that's the important thing for us and for me in my profession as we go forward, so we can kind of avoid those questions about what are we doing in the school. Everybody will know at that point because we've trained someone who's properly trained to be in a school setting. Because like Matt said, it's completely different. When I got in there, it was not what I expected. It worked out really well, and I love my job, but it's definitely a different setting, so that's good. I keep stats. I don't think I draw many reports. I have like my own stat sheet that I have to keep, so people don't ask what I'm doing. But just last year alone, so I keep track of calls for service. We had 57 total last year. I only wrote 2 incident reports. I taught or attended 52 training classes. I had 1,998 student contacts, 827 teacher contacts, 247 parent contacts. Attended 32 school events, 149 meetings, with a total of 3,367 contacts for our school district. So that's during a COVID year. So during a COVID year, I would expect that this year, I think I'm already up over I try to average 30 students a day contacts, which is either talking to them, dealing with a parent problem, social media, you name it. They come in.
Okay.
30 a day is my goal right now. So.
Are you charging us per contact?
Don't worry about me, I'm not a numbers guy.
I keep them because I think it's important.
I think I could beat him though at this point in the career. So just to give you a quick heads up on the relationship building things that we do. I mean, poor Josh wrecked his truck last week. And being the nice guy, I got him a crash test dummy shirt. So.
And it's important that Matt, we specialized training, right? There's been plenty of incidents that I've gotten called out from the police department. I don't show up in uniform. I show up in shorts and a t-shirt, and I'm there to support the family and the student. So there's no police work there.
Yeah.
They call the SRO to be, the friend counselor, not the cop.
Yeah.
And that happens quite a bit. We're famous for car crashes in Wyndham. That happens a lot. Any kind of other family incident that we get called out to, there's been plenty of times that I'm not in uniform. I'm just there as, foreigner and not officer foreigner.
And those relationships last long term. We had an incident this spring with somebody who had barricaded himself, pulled a gun on his family, barricaded himself in the house, and I was able to negotiate with him. And the thing that opened the door for him is I was his DARE officer, and he liked how I handled him back then. And now his child is going to be in DARE this coming year, so it took us 5 hours, but we got him out of the house safely with nobody hurt.
Good.
And I really chalk it up to the relationships that I built with the kids at the schools.
Any further questions?
Yes, one
Okay,
more.
sure.
This one is probably more for Chris. I was looking at the
MOU?
Yep. And I'm curious, does the grant cover the funding for their salaries? 100%, 90%, 50%?
No, and I have to go double check on this, Scott. I believe it's a $25,000 shortfall that we pick up locally within our budget. And that was budgeted in last year's budget. Unfortunately, we couldn't start the grant because we didn't have an officer to put in the position, but there is a component that we pay for that. In addition, for Seth's position, that itself is 80% locally funded by the RSU. If I remember correctly, I think it's 80, and then 20% by the town of Wyndham, based on time.
All right. Whose budget does that fall in? Is that district-wide?
I think that's
Or
actually
Seth High
Christine's
School?
budget.
Okay. All right. Does that include overtime?
We get a bill.
Yeah.
My job is not 7 to 3. There's a lot of hours I work that don't go in.
So it says here 7 to 3, but it doesn't sound like you're a 7 to 3 guy.
Trust me, there's
Neither one
plenty
of
that
you.
he does that isn't charged either. So.
Right.
You all set?
I am.
Anyone else? Gentlemen, thank
Great.
you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
All you do, you're
Thank you for your
invaluable.
I think you know you want to do.
I'm just gonna drop off forms in case anyone
Oh,
wants to
good.
join us.
Thank you. Excellent.
There's a QR code in case you want to jump onto our website. And then I'm gonna just drop this with you. We're gonna try to just put these around town. They're just some awareness for sponsorship, more the nonprofit side of it. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Jody.
Yep, no problem.
Item under number 8. I'd like to welcome Bill Hanson, Director of Facilities, Property Services, and Special Projects, who will update us on all the wonderful work he did over the summer with his staff.
Good evening. Great to see you all. Be back again. I'm Bill Hanson, Director of Facilities, RSU 14. I want to start tonight with some acknowledgments. The work that we do really couldn't happen without some really awesome staff members we have. I want to start with our custodians, and I use that term very specifically. Some people call them janitors. Our staff are custodians, and there's a real difference. A custodian cares about a building, is a custodian of that facility, make sure things are right. Our staff do that so much more, and it's really important. So if you can all think for a minute what they do every summer. If you went to your house, took everything out on the front lawn, cleaned every possible wall, floors, refinished the floors, and then put everything back in again before your in-laws get up for summer vacation. That's what they're kind of doing, okay? It's really quite amazing that it even happens. And we're talking 610,000 square foot of building. So it's a lot of space that they take care of, so it's really neat. And then they have this facilities director who throws in contractors coming in and messing it up, doing projects that they all work around to make it all happen. So that's really, I just want to acknowledge the work of our custodial staff. It's really quite amazing. On top of that, we have a maintenance staff of 2 people. I have 2 maintenance folks. So over the summer, they're doing all this work, and they did a tremendous effort. They installed 36 BenQ units. I don't know if you're familiar with BenQ units, but they're a new interactive display that we're using. That requires putting a mounting board up, getting the mounts up, getting displays up, getting electrical in, and getting whiteboards up. So it's not a 5-minute process in 36 different rooms. I'd like to acknowledge the ground staff. If you've been to our grounds, they really did an amazing job. And they continue to look at the finer details of around the buildings and stuff. So I'm really pleased with how that's going. It's not just sports fields, but it's the entire. And I'd like to. We also have volunteers who've done a great job too, as well. I'd like to recognize, particularly up here in Raymond, the group that does the work around the schools is really amazing. I'd like to acknowledge the central office staff because they provide a lot of support for me to get my work done. And it doesn't sound like much between requisitions and purchase orders and payments. And calling me, reminding me I have a meeting that I forgot about because I'm someplace else. So they're just quite amazing. And with that too, our facilities coordinator, Marlene Bicknell, who make sure things all work. And then finally, this year in particular, with all the challenges we've had, I'd like to personally thank the educational staff. Because, you know, I explained to a lot of the admins that, think about this, we're going to come in really hard and rough. So if this is prepare for crash landing, you were on a plane. Because of all the challenges of COVID, things coming in late, all things going on, it was not a smooth summer. And they have been nothing but understanding, coped with some of our challenges, the things that weren't done completely the way we wanted them to, and supportive. And it's just great to be in a place where we have a team that really pulls the rope together in the same direction and looks for the greater good for kids, which is really special. So thank you for letting me spend a little moment to talk about that. So let's talk a little bit about revolving innovation projects. If you've been to Wyndham Middle School, I think you'll see it's changed a fair amount. What we did is basically the first half of the project was the work out front. So the stairs are all gone. We all now have ADA walkways. We've improved lighting. So that's going to help us in 2 modes, better access, ADA access, but also winter snow removal is going to be much easier because we can actually bring machines now up through there to take care of that. So it will provide a safer site for staff. What it isn't in yet is the final fencing that's going in October. So there's a really ugly snow fence that I see every day. It drives me crazy, but that will be changed in October, November timeframe when the fencing comes in. Again, another thing that's limited by COVID is getting the materials for that. A lot of the cedar comes from Canada. So the middle school interior ADA project did not go ahead this year. The bids came back really tremendously high, and Chris and I decided we were going to bid it back out again in January. But the design work is done for that. Again, this is part of the state revolving renovation projects. The Field Allen sprinkler upgrade. The new underground water service for domestic and the sprinkler service is installed to the building. We got paving yet to get done. So that will be done this fall. So the first part will be done. We're working presently with the CHA and Dean and Allen on the design and install of the sprinkler system itself. So we got a few challenges where it's an older wooden building, but we're gonna work through that. If you've been over to Raymond Elementary School, you'll see that's changed a fair amount too. Unfortunately, regrettably, we're not done right now because of, again, the challenges of COVID. Some lead time materials have not come in as we hoped they would. I hope to have that wrapped up and operational later this fall. And it'll provide a secure entry and ability for staff and parents to come in directly into the office from the outside as opposed to having to walk down the hallway to the office. So pretty excited about having that project done. Continuance, Jordan Small Security Upgrade. That design work is done. It was done too late to bid this year, so we're bidding that out in January for upgrades for next summer. Again, the plan is to be very similar to the rest of our schools, moving the office to the front of the building so they have good visibility, and allowing staff, parents, and visitors to come directly into the office or to wait in a sally port before they come into the building, rather than to walk through the building to the office. So again, following on revolving renovation, Raymond's water system upgrade for RES. That was the design work was done in June, and with all the work going on in the front of the building, we decided to wait and get that done this next summer. And it's going to be an upgrade to the system. Now the system now is working fine. It's going to be an upgrade. We're going to move the water storage inside the building, add some additional filtration, and update the older, the 20-year-old water treatment system. So it's a planned maintenance. The fire alarm ADA upgrades in the various buildings is going to be put on hold until next year because of the work that was going on. Design work is done for that. That'll be bid in January. Field Allen asbestos abatement was completed this year. So Field Allen, other than any fittings that might be in interior walls, is asbestos free. So that's a great place to be. As far as other summer projects going, we did create a teaching space in the stage at Wyndham Primary School. A little bit of work still doing that, but the old stage curtain was removed and we put an infill wall there, so that's a space that we're using now for music. We're a little challenged in that it doesn't have the greatest acoustical properties as it being a wooden floor and concrete walls on two ends and a steel deck on the top, but we're working with PDT to address that. We did complete renovations of the last two rooms in Field Allen that were the original 1970s vintage finish in rooms 21 and 23. If you haven't been in there to see those, I recommend that you go check that. They really look nice, and they're kind of the end stage what we're looking for our final design for the rooms, and they really came out nicely. We did move 2 network racks in the primary school. It's kind of a big project. The network racks were in the first floor electrical closet up on the ceiling. To work on them, you had to get on a ladder and be really skinny and have long arms to do any work on it. So they moved to the second floor teacher's room. Now we can actually work on the systems. It's been a challenging upgrade in that some of the mapping wasn't done on the ports and the switches, so we've been working through that. Bob's been great to help me with that. We're almost through all of it, but it went a little bit harder than I anticipated. We did remove the asbestos siding in Little Road Schoolhouse and asbestos panels that are in the old boiler room in the basement. So again, that's more asbestos gone for us to not have to deal with as far as our hair plan goes. And we updated 7 bathrooms in the primary school. Primary school was built in 1989. So the bathrooms we're getting to a point where flushes weren't working, porcelain was having challenges, so we updated them. We actually removed sheetrock, put in new tile, new flooring, new toilets, and new low-flow flushometers. And feedback got so far from the teachers, they're very pleased with the outcome. And our plan is to continue to do that over a stage replacement to update those. They're just old and tired. Finally, we did replace flooring in numerous locations, the high school office, Field Allen itself, where we took the asbestos flooring up, Wyndham Primary School, RES, and Wyndham Manchester School. All had significant flooring replacements as part of our planned maintenance that we do. And again, I did mention that the CRF, we installed 36 BenQ boards. Chris might say 35 and a half because of the fact that we took one from the district office to put in the classroom because the last boards are coming a little bit late. So maybe it's 35, maybe it's 36. I round up, so I'll take 36. So I know it's a long night tonight, so I was trying to keep it brief so that you could kind of know what's going on. But if you have questions for me, I'm happy to respond.
I have a question.
If asbestos is
Excuse me,
snow-
sir.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll acknowledge you in a minute. We're going to do with board.
My apologies.
So you had mentioned Wyndham Middle School snow fence. What type of fence is going up there? I'm curious about snow removal operations, and are we going to be able to push snow through this fence, or is it going to go up against a fence, or what?
So we actually spent a lot of time looking at different options there, and Principal Drew Patton was helpful with that. It's going to be a rail and post fence, so it's going to look very nice. We clean that area all with snow blowers, so we will throw it over it. But it will serve two purposes. It will look nice, but it also will help kind of direct the students up and down the paths as far as going over it. So it won't look institutional.
Mm-hmm.
It'll have a really nice look to it. So that's the plan.
Okay. I have more, if I may.
Go ahead. All right, go ahead.
The fire alarm for the ADA compliant, that is visual as well as a sound, correct?
So we're going to go to full voice evac
Okay.
in the buildings, and this impacts Manchester Primary, Raymond Elementary School, and Jordan Small, because those schools are not full voice evac. So what that means, if you're in a building right now, it doesn't have it. You hear that wah wah wah. Well, this actually be a voice saying that's fire alarm. Please exit the building. It does a couple things, particularly for the younger kids. It's a little bit more calming if you're hearing that really awful noise. And I see Becca is shaking her head in agreement with that. So and also the nice thing with that, once we have that capability, we can message other things on that same voice evac. We can mention things like severe weather, we're doing a lockdown, lockout, that can all be messaged automatically on that. So it provides that nice feature. There's height requirements for the pole stations that will be addressed, as well as height requirements for the horn strobes.
Okay.
So yeah, it brings the whole building into compliance. The other thing that's happened over the years is that they've had new requirements for strobes in places that are like bathrooms where you can't see outside or man or hear. So someone who may be hearing impaired, imagines in a bathroom, the fire alarm goes off, there's not a strobe in there, they wouldn't know that there's a fire going on. So they address those things.
Okay, perfect, thank you. I think I heard you, did you mention pavement out front here? Or is there pavement that we are planning on fixing right over by Field Allen?
So the pavement I mentioned is around where they dug up the water line to go to Field Allen. It was quite a bit of challenge. We ran into an awful lot of ledge almost the entire way from Wyndham Center Road to Field Allen. So that's all going to be repaved. Mm-hmm. Just trying to look for a Wyndham, hoping to do that around the Indigenous Peoples Weekend. Mm-hmm. But I'm still trying to work with the contractor to finalize that. Paving up here is a project we need to work on. We started to put some money in capital reserve with that. Unfortunately, the challenge is I need to address drainage before I go to paving.
Okay.
If you walk the front, I'm happy to do it with you. There's not catch basins in the front that collect the water, storm water. Mm-hmm. So we need to address that with that. So to pave it now, you're going to have the same problem again in the too near future. So I'd like to have a permanent fix as opposed to just putting the overlay over what we've got.
Okay. What is the latest update as far as the solar farm goes?
I knew you were going to ask me that question. I did bring, I actually have a report I can share with all of you, or I give Chris and give to you, talking about where we stand. I guess I should not close it. I did talk to Charlie Agnew. As you can imagine, with COVID, things are behind the schedule they hoped for. And there's some other things that have happened. CMP has asked to have I'm going to get the term wrong. Whether
Transmission studies.
Transmission studies done. There's something about cluster rules and where the things are located. I think there's enough for everybody here. Mm-hmm. This is kind of so we're expecting capacity to kind of get online. I think that Charlie's anticipation is 2023 will be more close to our full capacity. Now, it's likely some projects are not going to make it. Because some of the things, requirements that CMP is putting out there and these additional costs as a result of COVID, some may fall through the cracks and we have to then go out and specific new projects to fill that gap. But it's a little early now to tell exactly where that's going to be. I have enough copies. Mm-hmm. Look at that. Perfect. Okay, so I won't go over that all with you right now, but that really gives you an update on where we're at. But we're right now we are receiving credits from the hydro that was installed previously. That's part of this. So we are receiving minimal credits, but the solar work won't really start to come online until 22 to 23.
I think the exciting thing that I saw in this memo, and I think it's the last page summary of projects, is that we do actually have a project in Wyndham that is part of our consortium.
It looks like it's pretty close. So, what is our average CMP bill?
Great question. The campus is right around 24,000 or so a month.
A month.
Yeah. Plus or minus.
What are we hoping that it's going to be once we come online with this, and then with the addition of all the new LED lighting that we have installed at the high school?
I'd have to look at that and get back to you for an answer on the top of my head, but what we are seeing that, well, two things have happened. We talked about this last year. Our usage has been going down steadily as a result of putting in LEDs. And then last year, my usage started to go the other way because now I'm running HVAC harder and longer.
Got it.
Okay, so the nice thing is that from a budgetary standpoint, the work we've done in conservation and LED work now has provided us an opportunity to have funds to pay for those additional run times and additional operation of the HVAC equipment, which has been good. So it's been like right now, looking at year to date, we're running a little bit below we were last year, but we're able to support where we are utility-wise.
Okay.
Pete, did you have a question?
I did, yeah, thank you. So Bill, I was happy to see the mobile electronic sign on Wyndham Center Road just making sure that people are aware that school's back in session and that is a school zone during certain times of the day. We did budget some money for the permanent lights. I think they were going to be solar powered. Can you just give me an update on what that is?
The update I can tell you is I need to look into the grant from the DOT to get them to pay for that. So I haven't made a lot of progress in that particular piece. It is in the budget to move on that, so it is my plan this year to get that done. But as I understood, there's a possible grant that DOT may pay for a good portion of that sign. So I want to look into that piece.
Just like update, we had a memo from the police chief from DOT that they were looking to work with districts for help and support. So we were going to first explore whether or not we could get someone else to pay for it and then save it in the budget. Because if I remember correctly, that was about $50,000 for that sign.
55, I think.
Yeah, for that signage. So to be able to then save that money and put it elsewhere. But if it doesn't work, then we'll go forward with the other one.
All right, perfect.
So my goal would be we'd have something up before the end of this fiscal year. It's just I haven't had a chance to move that ahead with everything else going on.
Yep.
Yeah, just a quick question. You mentioned doing some things at the Wyndham Middle School, and we're talking about building a new Wyndham. So I just was curious, I'm not sure if it's an easy answer, at what point do you kind of slow down on the current building and look to the future?
That's actually a great question. And so the revolving renovation money we have is really focused on the core section of the building. And it's a section of the building we intend to continue to use going forward. So the ADA improvements really were necessary. It was just really challenging for anyone who had any disability to get into the building. So the plan was once we're through this, and again, it's revolving renovation, so it's state funded and a portion forgiven, which has been really helpful. If we choose to continue the use of the core, or it has another use, this building's going to be ready for it to be used and to meet all the requirements of the ADA. So as our focus is just the core, we're not doing ADA improvements to the classroom wing that's down that way. And it certainly could use some improvements here and there, but we're choosing to focus on the core.
I think, Mike, a good example of that, which Bill was working to do renovation of the middle school locker rooms and then also some additional bathroom work. And the quotes are coming in, believe it or not, $2,000 a square foot for remodel. I told Bill I'd do it for $1,000. He still said no. But it didn't make sense, and it didn't make sense long term to be. I mean, it was $1.1 million, I think, for the middle school locker rooms, which didn't make sense to put that form of money. But ADA, we're still going to be using that building at least through to 2026, and to not have a building that is fully ADA out front. In addition, we've already saved quite a bit of money in our workers' comp policy by reducing slip, trips, and falls around buildings. And part of that has been, Bill's done great as far as removing stairs, and he's already promised me that our new building will not have any stairs outside. but has made quite a difference in reducing that premium. So I think even what we've put in out front will eventually pay for itself in just safety and student accessibility.
So just to jump on that, I did forget to go through this, so I want to update you on workers' comp. And again, Mike Duffy's been doing a great job working with me on this. I can't thank him enough. So if you look back to 2018 and 19, our mod was 1.4. Okay, our mod for 2021 was 0.89. Our mod for 21-22 was 0.81. Now that cautioned you because school wasn't in session quite as much. But so 0.89 means that if 1 is the average, we're less than the average situation. We were 1.4, which means we were almost 40% worse than the average before. So that's a huge change, and that's, you know, Mike's done a great work, but it's also the work of everyone in the district to make that an important change, looking at safety. So, and the impact is bigger than this because we were looking at, you know, our claims in 18-19 were 54,000. Okay, if we look at the prior 8 years, we had an average claim of $240,000 a year, claim total. So think how much education you can do with that 240 that now you're not spending. And more importantly, and I'm looking at Becca here, if she falls down and breaks her ankle and she's not in class with her kiddos, yeah, we can bring in a sub. That won't be Becca though. So the kids lose. So we can make this place safe, and we're doing it by eliminating stairs. I mentioned some of you that one of the reasons we're doing some of the seal coating on the driveways so we get better melt off, less ice. And our ground staff has shifted from doing the heavy lifting of moving snow. Now their focus is on treating surfaces so that the surfaces are ice-free when we're ready to go. So, and it makes a huge difference that we have that. And so, you know, again, this is a great way to save money by reducing our losses, and everybody wins. So.
And I'll just say that translates into, I think, between $75,000 and $100,000 in premium. That's a position with salary and benefits that's now not going out in an insurance premium. So it has made a big difference. And just thank you to Bill and Mike Duffy for really working to make sure that, you know, the campus is safe and we're reducing some of those exterior risks, because it does pay off.
Is there still a safety committee?
They did not meet last year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, there is one. We need to get it a little more active.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Thank you, Bill. If there's anybody in the audience that has a question, we'd love to hear from you through an email. If you want to contact the superintendent, we're going to move on to our next agenda item.
I do have a question.
If you wouldn't mind emailing the superintendent, this is not the time for public participation. But we definitely want to hear from you if you want to email the superintendent. We're going to move on to item number 9. American Rescue Plan and Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, ESSER.
I'm wondering if the gentleman in the back can help with the TV. It looks like the monitor's gone to sleep.
Oh.
Perhaps.
Is the man behind the curtain listening?
Let me try again.
There's got to be a remote. You want to take a 5-minute break?
We're going to take a 5-minute break to get set up.
Okay.
Oh.
I think it did go to sleep.
Hey.
Yeah.
We're good.
Here we go. It's up.
Chris, do you have an issue if I ask
Nope, go for it. Nope, go for it.
Let's see if we can get on to present. If not, we'll have to be small here. That's okay.
All set?
Well, there's a internet connectivity issue, but
Oh.
if you can see that, we'll go with the small version and I'll just click through the slides. Will that work?
Sure.
Okay.
Whatever you want to do.
So I'm going to present about the American Relief Plan, the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Funds that we have access to. And the goal of this is to walk you through the criteria that's been outlined and how these funds are used. They're very specific and very clear, and we want to walk through those. And for the public to understand those categories of fund use and give you some examples this evening of projects that we would like to build into the application, and then provide an opportunity for the public to give us input into those projects as they fit into the categories. So we'll walk through where to go on the website. There's a public notice on the website, and you have an opportunity through a Google form or certainly email or phone call to send in any ideas that you have for the use of the funds. Oh, let's hope we can click through. Here we go. So the RSU 14 grant award is $3,119,187. It's very clear, the two bulleted points there give you the overarching umbrella areas that we need to focus on with the use of these funds. The first being to implement prevention and mitigation strategies aligned with CDC guidance to the greatest extent practicable. The second is focused on the academic impacts of lost instructional time through the use of evidence-based intervention practices, and specifically focusing on not just academic, but also social, emotional, and the mental health needs of all students, particularly underserved groups. So those are the two bulleted overarching pieces we need to have in mind as we think about the use of these funds. The timeline. So May, not that long ago, we submitted the initial application that was due. We were approved for that. And really since May, it's brainstorming time. It's reviewing the criteria and having conversations with many different stakeholder groups to think about how might we use these funds over a period of 3 years. The application will be due at the end of this month, and then all funds are committed by September 30 of 2024. So this is language right out of the federal guidelines for the use. And so I want to have you focus in on the bold bulleted points. Those are the general categories. It's very clear that at least 20% of the $3+ million needs to be focused on that lost instructional time due to COVID. And you'll see the sub-bullets there give examples, and that's right out of the guidance. So these aren't examples that we've come up with. They're right out of the federal guidance documents to support this application. So when you think of, again, those evidence-based interventions, lasering in on academic, social, emotional, and mental health needs of students, summer learning or enrichment. Many families participated last summer, and we had many staff build a robust program for regular ed and special education students throughout the end of June and into July. Transportation, meals provided, interventions, enrichment, social, emotional, time for children to get together and really enjoy each other's company after a long, challenging year, in addition to those real specific skills-based interventions. But there are also examples given to us to consider things like extended day or comprehensive after-school programs. Thinking about our extended school year programming, is there anything we have always thought would be beneficial as we're examining the needs of students during this challenging time? Is there a group that we're missing that we really should think about a program for? And the last bullet's important. We're asked to really examine those that might be disproportionately impacted due to COVID. Subgroups, major racial or ethnic groups, children from low-income families, children with disabilities, English learners, gender, migrant students, students who are experiencing homelessness or in foster care. And so there are these examples that really push us to examine, are we meeting those potentially underserved groups? And how do we build programs to support them? So that's the 20% or more category. The next category is health and safety efforts in response to COVID. So supplies, training, facility upgrades. Bill Hansen has mentioned some of those this evening. Our continued work around facility upgrades, continued work around air quality, HVAC, filters, touchless fountains, toilets, etc. All those things that really help mitigate potential transmission of COVID or any other illness. Nutritional programming. Again, we have free meals for all at this time, but continuing to think moving forward. We don't know how long that will last, but how do we respond to the need for more packaged foods, the increased participation rates. That's huge. We've seen numbers go up. That's wonderful. More students are accessing meals. But with that, they have to think programmatically about how to respond to that. Technology supports, so not just the hardware and having one-to-one devices, but software, connectivity. And I'm actually not online right now, so there's a great example. Assistive technology, adaptive equipment. So really thinking about, again, all students and what they might need and what resources are out there that could help them engage more deeply in their learning. And then the last category, mental health services and supports. We're really doing well with the technology category here. My apologies. So I wanted to break those down. I took the overarching categories and I'm giving you some examples of what we have at this time drafted as possible projects to submit in the application. We really are hoping that if you hear these and you have other ideas that you think are more important or you'd like clarity around, there's opportunities to reach out to me. Certainly, if you don't reach out to me, there's an anonymous survey if you don't want to have a phone call. I really want you to think about these and send your suggestions, and we have a place for you to do so. So when you think of that 20% or more with the lost instructional time, there is a need to look at increased staffing. In order to respond to the increased need for health services due to COVID and adhere to the school reopening plan measures and respond to those academic, social, emotional needs, really just looking at additional staff that can help us with some of the intervention due to last year in particular with that significant loss in time here on campus. Response to intervention and multi-tiered system of support. So those are those things that schools are doing to really examine if a child is not making the progress we would hope to see, what resources, what approaches, strategies will work to help that child close that gap, whether that's an academic or social emotional gap, executive functioning skills, whatever that is. What do we have? If the child's struggling, not making the progress we'd like to see, let's think about that and how can we get the resources and tools to that child. Some examples there, iReady Diagnostic, that's an assessment tool. The iReady Resources, math coaching and support that supports the implementation of the new math program, but really making sure teachers feel they have the tools they need if they are seeing some math skills deficits. The summer learning enrichment, again, looking at the transportation, the meals, and the programming over the next, we just finished a program and we'll continue planning for next summer and the following summer. Next category, the health and safety efforts. A lot of the elements that you see outlined in the school reopening plan, so PPE and signage and sanitizing of equipment, those facility upgrades that Bill spoke about. He mentioned tonight the Windham Primary School stage wall, this idea of looking at building spaces and thinking about how we can have students not crammed into one space, but use space in a different way. And certainly with meals and other challenges with everything we're facing at this time. Continued upgrades to the HVAC units as needed, negative pressure spaces in each school for the nursing space, manual flush valves I know he spoke about. When we get into nutritional programming, we've met with Jeannie Riley and Ryan Roderick. They've been thinking about summer meals, staffing, supplies, and food due to the increased participation rates. Equipment due to the increased participation rates, so warming ovens and steam tables and food processors. But they've also gone beyond the staffing and equipment and thought about the cooking club, school gardens, and continued development of those programs especially now when students may be really struggling with some of those mental health or social emotional needs and or nutritional needs, just that not just the engagement in the program, but also the learning they walk away from. And waste mitigation strategies. The increased participation rate has created some challenges with what to do with all the packaging and the waste as a result of a robust program that's being accessed by many.
If I can just add something on this,
sorry.
Christine,
Oh,
and it was a number that surprised me when I talked to Jeannie yesterday, but right now Wyndham Primary School was the one that there's roughly 745 kids at Wyndham Primary. They're currently serving 600 free breakfasts and lunches at that building. So numbers and participation are up all across the district this year, in some cases doubling in some buildings. What it means though is that our lunch folks are stretched thin, and so it's making us look at where are we with current staffing, do we have the equipment to support that, because we are serving more meals. The other thing Jeannie said is that a delivery will come on one day, she'll be in the kitchen the next, and the storeroom looks half empty again. Food is moving out more quickly than it ever has. So it's great to see the participation. It's just putting a new stress on us that we've not had in the past.
Thank you. Technology, as we're experiencing now, it's forever something to examine. So continued review of our hardware. As you know, it seems to age out quickly, and constantly examining what needs to be upgraded. So along with the hardware purchases, there's the back end supports to make sure it's running appropriately, and the software and the MiFi internet connectivity. If families do not have internet and they need support, we have a form and a way to get them that MiFi device to support them, so that is not a barrier to that child's participation. Outdoor classrooms, looking at getting Wi-Fi and power out there so that teachers can get kids outside, get those masks off, be participating as much as possible outside as the weather permits. Mental health services and supports, and this is the last category. So we have looked at and have hired an additional counselor for the Katahdin program, a licensed clinical social worker part-time to support Raymond Elementary and Jordan Small in response to the social, emotional, and mental health needs of students. Additional, looking closely at other similar kinds of staffing supports during this time. People are definitely feeling the strain, kids and staff, and how do we make sure the supports are there. The social emotional learning team that has, as you know, we've presented about that the last couple of years. We're continuing to meet and look at professional development, resources out in schools, supplies, and really having that systemic district level conversation around what do we have, what's working where, do we need to replicate something in another place, is there a resource or something they're feeling they're lacking, and how can we get that to them? So those are just some examples. The stakeholder groups that I've mentioned, so it's very clear in the federal guidance that they want to see us engaging in conversations, which is one of my favorite things to do, but it's conversations with students. I've been meeting with students at Wyndham High School and at the Katahdin program. Over the course of the life of this grant, we want to continue to do so. So it's important to get their voices in these projects, and they shared wonderful examples of things they would like to see. A lot of comments from students about technology, comments about Wi-Fi and the ability to connect outside at those outdoor classrooms, conversations around late bus, access to after-school programs. So they really had some very insightful comments to share. Families, community members, we want to hear from you, and I'll get to where you can go to provide input here momentarily. That civil rights organizations, principals, district administrators, you see the list there, stakeholders, really trying to think about, again, those people who might be disproportionately affected by COVID. And here is where we can have you focus your attention on getting us your thoughts, ideas for a program you wish we had, a resource something you've learned from someone who lives in another district, or an area of real need that you see with your own child. This is where we can get you to put your thinking, and then we'll work hard to see if we can weave that into a project that we'll submit at the end of this month with the final application. So if you go to I can't hop on the district site, but I did take a screenshot earlier today. I'm glad I did that. You'll see 2 buttons. They're represented at the top there. One says ARP/ESSER3 public notice. That's where you can see the full public notice document. That's right next to the school reopening plan button. That's on the home page of the site. And then you'll also see in the news feed a public notice, a document there. You can click either place. And there's a Google form you'll be able to access right in the public notice. And it was hyperlinked, but I can't show it to you now. It's just a place for you to anonymously share some input.
Thank you. Sure. In this particular item on the agenda, we do have a public comment section, primarily because we are looking for public input for need. So if there is any public comment on this?
Regarding the American Rescue Plan, Maine's received more than $411 million in American Rescue Plan funding as an incentive for school districts to follow federal COVID-19 restrictions and protocols. My question to this board is RSU 14 school district implementing federal guidelines to receive ARP funding?
Mr. Howell?
We already answered that question, no.
You had stated that ESSR 3 does not require that.
Correct, and this is
Did
SR3.
Did you not receive 1 or 2?
Yep, we received 1 and 2, and that's
So that does require that.
Right, which was under the governor's state of emergency, which expired back on June 30th.
So another question, do you qualify for ESSER 3 if you did not receive 1 and or 2?
You didn't have to receive 1 or 2 to qualify for ESSER 3. Is that what you're asking?
No, you didn't. Any district was qualified for that.
Okay, so you didn't have to implement those guidelines.
No, and I think as we've shared with the public and the board before, we made some long-term investments with ESSER 1 and 2, which included purchase of school bus, vans, technology, significant upgrades to heating and ventilation systems. We really looked at using those funds at the best that we could, knowing that they were a one-time gift and we weren't creating a financial cliff, so no.
Appreciate the answer. Has RSU 14 considered allocating any or some of those funds to, say, an industrial hygienist or an environmental toxicologist to teach about a hierarchy of controls to mitigate exposure?
I would say we haven't at this time, but that would be a great example.
They would teach you about hierarchy of controls, how to mitigate control, and they would also let you know that PPE is the last on that list, So I would recommend as a resident that you should invest in the top of that list.
And if you would, it would be great if you could either submit that in the Google form or email me or call me so that and all that information's in the public notice, how to document your suggestion.
Sure, yeah. Great, okay, I think that's all I have.
Terrific, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Anyone else?
Matthew Murphy again. So personally, from being a parent, I can say from what I was shown here that the biggest contributor or the biggest helper I would have as a parent would be the after-school programs along with transportation, because I'll fully admit I am a single parent, so just me. And transportation, finding the opportunity to actually, get her to after-school programs that she would like is the biggest hindrance currently. So that type of thing, transportation also would be a big help.
Good suggestions, thank you. Anyone else? We'll get there. Any other public? No? Okay, we're going to go to board, and I'm going to go straight to you.
Me?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I just wanted to mention that a bunch of students were talking about how they got to speak to you in their classroom. They're really excited to be able to voice their opinions. So they really valued your time and you talking to them.
Thank you. That's
absolutely.
Someone else over here? Sure.
So this total grant is about $3.1 million, and based on your presentation, it sounds like we're going to be bolstering a lot of different areas of the RSU. What are we going to do when we run out of the $3.1 million to continue what we've bolstered, or is it going to go away?
It's going to go away, and we had a similar experience back ARA funds, which would have been 2007, 8, 9, 10, with financial cliffs, where basically districts received a huge influx of cash, and then we were very cautious at that time to make sure that we weren't creating long-term commitments, so that when that cash went away, we didn't create that. It's a financial cliff. As we've been planning and as we've been working with the administrative team, it was actually one of our long discussions on Tuesday, is making sure that we avoid that cliff. So things like technology or things like school buses or toilet flush valves, it may not sound like an exciting thing, but I can get 20 years of a toilet flush valve, and if it goes away 3 years from now, then we still have a toilet flush valve. So making sure that we're careful. What we do we do have some positions in there. One being some help and support for our nurses, because right now the amount of time that they're spending contact tracing, running through, making sure that they're meeting the needs of students, they need some extra help and support. I'm hopeful 2 to 3 years from now that will all go away. Same thing with kitchen. Kitchen we may have to add on the budget, because if we're serving now an extra 200 meals in a school, we're also getting an extra 200 meals worth of revenue that may have an offset. So when it comes time to budget, there'll be those. But we're being very careful. It's a great question, Shar, about avoiding that financial cliff and making sure that we're making those long-term investments, that the money goes away, we still have a product in hand.
Great, thank you.
Mike?
Hopefully 3 quick ones. Kind of new here. So we've got this money, but we're in a process of deciding how it's going to be spent, getting approval for how it's going to be spent.
Right,
Is that
correct,
true?
right.
Okay, all right, that's one.
We've not taken, let me just clarify.
Well, I mean, we've been approved for the number.
It's a reimbursement process.
Okay.
So we actually have to spend the money up front, and then we submit monthly for reimbursement.
Okay, all right, thanks, that's a key point. Okay, early on, and this is not meant to be a gotcha anyway, you set up, you were talking in the beginning about making up for lost instruction, I guess. And my brain eventually went to, well, you never can make up for what we lost. And I'm sure you didn't mean it that way, but this is meant in a sense to support kids. It sounds like it's supporting kids that are having issues and traumas even from the last year and a half. Okay, all right. And the third thing, which was kind of striking, and my wife's an educator, and I watched her in another district get this money, and I was like looking, like saying, wow, it doesn't have to all be COVID related, which is kind of floors me a little bit. Some of it's COVID related, at least what you're suggesting, and then some of it is, free money and let's go spend it. And I don't mean that to be, I'm thinking of people that aren't sitting at this table, basically, that some of the stuff here I'm looking at, like getting a bus even, how do you tie that into COVID, really?
So we were able to do it last year because last year we could only run half capacity buses, and we could only run half capacity vans, so we had to add additional busing to the fleet in order to even meet our busing needs. And so we used some of ESSER 1 and ESSER 2. Another thing was done in ESSER 1 and ESSER 2, upgrade in our heating and ventilation systems, where we went from MERV 8 filters to a MERV 13, and I didn't know what a MERV 13 was, but then you can go to a 15 and a 17, but it's highest grade that you can go to, or that they recommend to try to get airflow. So looking at those types of things, but $3 million over 3 years is not a lot of money.
Sure.
So I think one thing that we've talked about is we just need to be very, very careful. We have until September of 2024 to spend this. Yep. There may be things that come up that we just didn't know about, or there could be new wrinkles, and I'm okay with sitting on some of this.
Sure.
Just to make sure. We will make sure, though, by 2024 that we do spend what was allocated to us.
Can I just reflect back then from what I heard you say? To some extent, you can make a case that everything is COVID related. Is that what I think I'm hearing you say? We can make the case. these are things.
I was going to say, the guidance, it's clear that I need to, as I'm talking with different stakeholder groups, I'm making it clear what's the COVID rationale connection.
Okay.
It needs to be pretty tightly connected to the impact of.
Just trying to think of an example of something we said no, that we couldn't do, that someone had proposed as an idea. I'll have to think about that, but
Okay.
trying to keep it.
And I don't even need that, but I hear
I
what
think
you're
it's got to
saying.
pass that straight face test, that
Okay.
it is related to the pandemic or things that have impacted the district as a result of the pandemic. And to be strategic with our spending, because we do have some staffing needs, and one of the difficult things right now is that even if you have a staffing need, I can't necessarily get a body to fill that staffing need. So just trying to be as strategic as possible.
Can I ask one more quick
Sure.
one? So I'm looking at, in the beginning, helping, I guess, again, support kids and staff, I assume too, through evidence-based interventions. And I'm assuming that's kind of historic. There's really, I can't imagine there's really evidence-based COVID. I'm not sure there's any studies at this point. You're really using educational materials from other things.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So when we're thinking about intervention models that are out there that are, there's research behind that model. And so using that resource, the iReady diagnostic, to assess where the child is, and then resources that,
Sure.
have some level of evidence and research supporting their efficacy.
Okay. I'm done. Thank you.
You said?
Yeah.
Pete?
Yeah, I just had a couple of follow-ups. The first was off chart. Obviously, we're going to have to use some of this money to add positions. I mean, that's going to be critical. But I think of this, of course, as more like a grant. And I would just think of this important that any individual that we're hiring knows that up front as well, and knows that their position is kind of a grant position and that it's not a permanent thing, because otherwise we're going to be increasing our long-term costs. And the same thing with any purchases. I mean, it's great to purchase things, but we've got to be thinking about the long-term implications of maintenance or replacements of these things. So that was one point that I wanted to bring up. And
Pete,
then,
if I can just go to that, if you notice if you watch our ads that come out for positions, those are all being advertised as 1 year.
4 years.
So that we've been very clear with people up front, this is a 1 year position, we'll reevaluate, but just to make sure that there's no false hope.
All right. Do we ever do contract work?
Contract work specifically for
any of our positions?
More so for Bill's positions, with some of the custodial positions that can't be filled. We've done some contract work for that. We've not done that with transportation or with some of the other support services. We've done some contract work for special education, specifically for educational testing and some OT/PT.
Okay. Yeah, that was a thought. And then Mike's question brought up something for me too. You said that we spend the money and then get reimbursed. So just procedurally, I was turning in my mind, how do we spend money that wasn't budgeted originally?
Sure. So we would pay for it out of our reserves, cash balance, and then we would pay ourselves back. We have to front the money in order to be able to get those reimbursements. And this is part of that article, I'm trying to remember if it's Article 11 or Article 13, where the voters vote for any additional funds that are brought into the district that we have the ability. This was one of those items that would then include in that. But for instance, if we were to purchase a bus, we have to front the money for that bus. We submit a monthly reimbursement, and I say monthly reimbursement, they're about this thick, it's about a ream of paper.
Yep.
With all the backup that goes to it. And by the way, thank you to Stacy and Wendy and Kelly. This has produced a huge amount of paperwork on the back end to then reimburse ourselves and then to charge back to that account. But in essence, we are giving ourselves a loan with our cash flow in order to make sure that we can purchase these items. There have been some districts that have struggled in their financial health, that have had some difficulty making some of those initial payments, and have either had to do anticipation loans or other things in order to float themselves the cash in order to do these things. So, but thank you to the people in the back office. It's been a lot of extra work.
And remind me, does the board have to vote on all of these?
Only have to vote if it's a long-term contract.
Okay. All right. That's it for me.
All set?
Thank you. Yep.
Anybody else? Thank you, Christine. I know this was a huge undertaking to put this together, and I know the gentleman in the back, his suggestions will be included in your work, so thank you. Number 10, Maine School Board Association resolutions. Last week, we spent some time going through the resolutions, and these are in conjunction with the Maine School Management Association. Every year, there is a conference that school board members attend, or used to attend. This year, it's virtual. And during that time, a delegate from each school unit goes to a meeting, and it's held with the state school board. Did I get that right? With the state school board?
Superintendent Association too, I think, right?
Yeah, I don't go to those.
MSMA.
Yep. And the long and the short of it is they proposed some resolutions, which we read out loud at our last meeting. Each person had their choice position to read a resolution. And we discussed each resolution, and at this time, we will be voting on each individual resolution. We're not going to read them again. What we do with this information is we give it to our esteemed colleague, Christina Small, sorry. And she is going to be our rep, and she, on that Saturday, the 23rd, I believe it is, going to represent us, and she will carry forth our votes. So without further ado, may I have a motion, please?
I move to support the proposed MSBA Resolution 2.A.2.G, student absenteeism.
They don't make it easy.
Second.
Good. Any public comment? Board discussion? I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
I am not going to support this, and the reason why I'm not going to support this is because they are looking to, Maine School Board Association supports the Department of Education goal of having all students be in attendance at least 95% of the academic year. It seems a little crazy to me that we are doing contact tracing and booting kids out of school that rode a bus with somebody, and there's so many kids right now that have already missed a bunch of school, and now they want us to pass this. It doesn't seem like the right time, and I'm not going to support it.
Mark?
Chris, could you kind of add to that? I mean, how is that viewed? Okay, the students who have to miss school because they're contact, et cetera, are they counted in the absenteeism rate? Because they're really not absent.
No.
We move them out of school.
Right, because they can't come to school. They're not listed as absent.
Okay.
That's cleaned up after the quarantine takes place. So initially they appear as an absence. That's just to help us with tracking on days, and then that's cleaned up, and it doesn't end up being an absent.
Infinite Campus
Okay.
says otherwise.
For the moment, it gets cleaned up after the fact. We need some process to track who's out and for how long that they need to be. And Mr. Karen keeps track of that at the high school,
Okay.
and then it disappears.
Go ahead.
I just have one more.
Yep, go ahead.
Now, I know Shar brought up the teacher portion of this at our last meeting. I guess, I don't know if we ever came up with how Christine was supposed to approach that question when she gets there.
Should I just ask before the vote? Ask what she
Yeah.
asked?
Okay.
Yeah, my whole point was it's focusing on student absenteeism. Well, what about staff absenteeism?
Why did they remove that whole section?
Yeah, and how does that,
Yeah.
where is that addressed? And if it's not, why?
Right.
And if their response is that it's in the union contract, then okay. But we need to know where it's addressed, because they're taking it out, so where is it?
Mike?
Yeah, my comment going, I guess, from Scott's comment is this a goal? I mean, is this just saying we would like to see kids in school 95% of the time?
It does say goal.
I mean, is that the intent of it? Yeah. So.
I think the intent of all these is to help shape policy when legislative pieces come up and to help inform those individuals. Because none of these resolutions are actually binding to any school board, to your policies.
Okay.
Are we all set? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? No? Did we get everybody? Okay. Number 2, a motion, please.
I move to support the proposed MSBA Resolution 2A4G School Board Training.
Second.
Any public comment on the motion? Board discussion.
Okay, well, just one more thing, only because I made notes last time. Shar brought up, and I don't know, was this a question you wanted asked? What do they mean by what is equity, Shar?
Yeah, just I have concern with the use of equity in this section, so I'm not going to support it.
But did you not want clarity on what that meant? You wanted
Oh, I
the
know
definition.
exactly what it means.
Oh,
So
okay.
you don't want me to ask the question?
No, we should ask the question because we don't know what their intention was here. We can't presume to know exactly what they're talking about here, so finding out more would be really important.
Yep, so
Can't
feel free
hurt.
to ask, yes.
Can't hurt. Any other board discussion? No? All those in favor? Opposed? Got it? Number 3, a motion, please.
I move to support the proposed MSBA Resolution 2B1C curriculum policy.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any public comment?
I have public comment. Can we
Terrific.
get a little bit more clarification on what the changes are going to be?
To the curriculum?
Yes.
Bear with me, sir.
So just to be clear, this isn't RSU 14 curriculum that they're voting on. This is the state resolution for the board, so
It's not binding for us.
just so we do know it's not a curriculum change for us.
Okay, but just like other things, just like you take other people's guidance under advisement, you possibly could use it.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that it wasn't our curriculum that they
Yes.
voted.
Okay. So
Does that help?
what would be the curriculum changes that would be made to this district if we choose to like actually uphold those?
Sir, the only thing that they added in this section was, and include in-person, remote, and regional collaborative learning opportunities.
Oh, just adding remote learning into the curriculum. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think that's obviously because of COVID.
I just know what the updates were compared to what the
Yeah,
was
no, great
previously, that's all.
question.
Thank you.
Great question, thank you. Let me get back to my spot here. Any other public comment or discussion?
What I brought up when we discussed it a couple weeks ago was, the yellow section that they're adding to include in-person, remote, and regional collaborative learning opportunities. That comes across to me as some sort of mandate, and I know this is just guidance for school boards to use, but it really does sound like a mandate, which personally, I don't have a problem with, but it takes out a lot of flexibility if school boards are gonna go with this guidance. So it's just a cautionary comment.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Can I just comment on the regional collaborative? My guess is that this is being added is because regional collaboratives are something fairly new within the state within the last couple of years where districts are receiving additional funds to be part of a regional collaborative. And so many of those collaboratives are working together to provide additional opportunities and programs for kids that we just can't do on our own. So my guess is that's going to take advantage of those, especially in parts of the state where enrollment's declining and kids don't have those opportunities.
We all set?
I guess my big issue is it's working before, it's working for us right now, being a part of a regional collaborative unit. Why do we need legislation? Why does the legislation need to change? Why does this need to change?
This just informs legislation. This is just a suggestion.
But
for-
like we were saying, it's still guidance of future policy. So
Yep.
if it's not broken,
I think what it's meant is that if something comes up in the legislature to support regional collaborative funding, wow, can't get all that out tonight. That this would be that opportunity to support, that's something that they would want to say, yes, we might want to get behind this.
Anyone? Yes.
I have a question, actually, sorry, more to the larger picture. So this was proposed on July 17th, but I assume there was a public meeting in which the discussion of why these changes were made happened. So if we have specific questions, could somebody go back and watch that meeting and find out why exactly they put that in there? Am I understanding this right?
That might not be true, actually.
There may just be a resolutions committee.
Oh, that wouldn't necessarily have.
That's
okay.
bringing this forward to the larger group for their consideration.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was probably a committee kind of meeting.
Okay,
So
would you like me to ask that question, Scott?
you're going to the bigger meeting.
Yes.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Jenny?
In looking this over, this section hadn't been redone since 1999. And I presume that sentence, I should say that phrase was added because of COVID. Because other things we weren't talking about remote versus in-person learning. I'm presuming that's probably why. So it's just opportunities or different ways of doing education that we didn't happen to deal with before.
Just bringing the resolution up to date is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the way I read it.
That's the
That's the way I read it too. But can you ask that,
I will find out.
Christine will ask.
Okay.
Christina. I'm following her now. I know.
Too many C's. Chris, Christina.
Now we know what gets under your skin.
Yeah. Pretty obvious. Okay. Where did we vote?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Thank you.
There's a motion on the table.
Thank you. All those in favor? What, should we wait? Cher's not here.
Oh, wait a minute.
Looks like you had enough.
Yeah, but
For the
they
sake of the
they need to
minutes.
count.
Just go ahead and make the call, Madam Chair.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
We're gonna-
All those in favor? Yes. Raise your hand. Okay. Thank you.
Oh,
Wait.
any opposed?
Any opposed? Oh, I thought your
Okay,
hand
when
was
this
raised.
comes out in the minutes that there's missing one vote, let's remember.
Just put one abstain.
Pete will pick up on it.
Put one abstain. Kristen's not here.
All right, are we ready to move on?
Yep.
Number 4.
I move to support the proposed MSBA Resolution 2B11 multiple pathways.
Second.
Any public comment or discussion?
What was the update to this,
Multiple pathways is what we're discussing.
multiple pathways?
Yes.
Could that be a little bit more in detail, just for people that haven't done the due diligence to know
Sure.
everything on the docket?
Sure. The Maine School Boards Association urges local school boards to approve educational programs that interest, engage, and motivate each student to realize their potential and result in successful completion of their high school experience while equipping them with a high school diploma or equivalency.
Okay, so that sounds pretty vague. I mean, does it go in, like, is there any more detail, like
That's-
ways that it's going to accomplish that?
That's
or-
it.
Okay,
No.
pretty vague.
Nope. Let me get back to this. Any board discussion? Nope. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. Number 5, a motion, please.
I move to support the proposed MSBA Resolution 2B3D Teacher Evaluation.
Second.
Any public comment?
Hi, everybody. I'm Rebecca Cole. I teach first grade at Wyndham Primary School. I'm also a Wyndham resident, and I serve Maine on the NEA Board of Directors. Just in light of some of the questions in general about this process, I think it's important for people who haven't participated in a representative assembly, such as the one Christina is preparing to attend. The things being proposed are belief statements. These are not proposals, specific proposals to local policy or even state or federal policy. These are the belief statements of the organization that is preparing to host the event. They are usually made by a resolutions committee, which is reviewing past policy, past resolutions, and doing, as you do as a board, periodic overhauls of their documentation. There's nothing, as Mr. Howell has said repeatedly, there's nothing binding. This is not saying that anything is going to change locally. These are the board's recommendations for their representative to that assembly body, and those decisions will be made by the delegation at the event. That said, again, as co-chair of the Teacher Evaluation Committee here in the RSU, we're happy to come and talk more about specific policy at the pleasure of the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion?
Oh,
I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
It's okay.
My head's swiveling here.
It's all right. It's getting late. So, as a member of the public, I would have to support this specifically because of the fact that students are constantly under the pressure of getting tested and make sure they meet up to snuff. I believe teachers should be the same way, and also an amendment to that also. Their actual responsive students to how they're taught just should also be representing on how good the teachers. So basically use student test scores to actually contribute to teachers' overall score of towards the positive or negative.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? No, we're
I would like it to be grammatically correct in the middle sentence.
Thank you.
And I'm a math teacher, but still. I read this at our meeting 2 weeks ago. The sentence is, feedback is critical for all educators regardless of where they are at in their career. Take out the word at, please. Would you suggest that to them? There you go. I feel better.
Jenny, if it makes you happy, I circled it, so.
Oh, good. Okay.
I think we all caught that. That
Yeah.
was poor form. Any other board discussion?
I just made a comment to say thank you, Becca, for standing up and clarifying and just kind of bringing this back in as to what this is really all about.
Yeah.
Thank you. Having served on multiple state and national level representative assemblies, that's always hard for everyone to keep in mind. So, and that would be a friendly amendment, Christina.
Okay, there you go. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ready to vote?
Ready? Oh, go ahead.
Just a quick question. So, does the Maine School Board Association have, this section talks about teacher evaluation. Does it have guidance on what evaluation system should be used for teacher evaluation?
I'm going to pass that to Mr. Howell.
I don't believe so. That would be left to, what's currently in legislation and then left to local committees to determine what that is. And
Okay.
there's a specific makeup for those committees within state statute, and I think they would leave that right out of that.
Okay, so would that be, the evaluation of teachers, would that be covered under the union contract, or would it be
No.
outside that?
There's a separate supervision and evaluation plan that was developed cooperatively with professional staff in the district over the last bazillion years. And I think it would be helpful to come and spend a night talking about it because it's been a while since that's been brought to the board, and it's been a great collaborative process focused on improvement of instruction.
Yeah, my only concern with this section is that it just says that an evaluation system. So if this is guidance to school boards, what if you have a school board that's not educated on proper evaluation practices? And where my background is human resources, I do evaluations all the time. So that's just my only concern is I wish it had more meat or a subsection to talk about what types should be used, just because you can't, this is assuming that school boards understand what a proper evaluation system is. That's my only concern.
Thank you. Duly noted. Anybody else? All those in favor? Thank you. Number 6.
I move.
Go ahead.
A move to support the proposed MSBA Resolution 3A3 administrator shortage.
Second.
Any public comment? Board discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Number 7.
I move to support the proposed MSBA Resolution 3B3E, funding of services of students with severe disabilities.
Second.
Any public comment or discussion? Marge?
Yeah, down at the end, where it says, furthermore, the governor and legislature are urged to provide full funding on an annual basis and to add a provision to the law which would allow these reimbursable costs to be excluded from local school budgets. It's supposed to be in there. Was that ever done? Here it looks like it's a recommendation, but was it ever done? This is not a part of the change.
Those high-cost special do exist outside. It's a, we just filed a report this week. I think it's an EFS 07 report is the one that we filed. So it is a reimbursement model that exists outside. I can come back though, Marge, with some more specifics on how that funding works and how much we have to put up front. But these are our high needs out-of-district placement students. And that is a direct reimbursement for those costs.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because they said to add, it never said it was added. But
Let me touch base with Lisa and
Okay.
we can debate on that and I can get back to you on it.
Okay, great, thanks.
Anybody else? All those in favor? Thank you. Number 8, please.
I move to support the proposed MSBA resolution, learning loss.
Second.
Any public comment or discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Number 9.
I move to support the proposed MSBA resolution binding arbitration.
Second.
Any public comment or discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Number 10.
Move to support the proposed MSBA resolution right to strike.
Second. Any public comment or discussion?
Question.
Sir.
So what is, clearly MSBA opposes any legislation. So what are they talking about here? Are they looking to discuss this, or what are they looking to do here? I don't understand.
There have been bills in I think the last 2 legislative sessions about the ability to strike.
At least.
And binding arbitration.
Right, and binding arbitration.
Yeah.
I want to say it was the last 2 sessions, if not the last 3, so it's opposing that ability to strike.
Yeah.
Maine is not a strike state.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other comments? No. All those in favor? Thank you. Oh, we're done. Hallelujah. All right, thank you all for that. Item number 11, appointments. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the following appointments for the 2021-2022 school year. Sarah Dominicus, licensed clinical social worker, clinician, 1 year only, for Jordan Small Middle School and Raymond Elementary School, Masters 13, at a salary of $25,488.
Second.
Thank you. Any public comment or discussion?
I have a couple
Yep,
of quick
go ahead.
questions. At $25,488, how many hours? Is this a 0.5? Is this a 0.4? 2/5? 0.4? All right, so it's a 2/5.
And can you guess the funding source based on the 1 year?
I did notice that. And then I'm assuming this is a replacement?
This is a
New position.
Yep.
1 year.
1 year new position, and the funds are coming from where then?
ESSER 3.
Oh, so we're already into this. Perfect. All right, that's what I had.
Perfect. Any other? Nope. All those in favor? Thank you. Report of the Secretary, item 12.
I move to approve the minutes of September 1, 2021 meeting.
Second.
Any public comment or discussion? Yes.
On the back page is my comment, actually. I just want to ask Chris, is that clear? I was actually talking about the vaccination law that passed a couple years ago that is about you know, all the shots you have to get as a child. And I just want to make sure that was clear versus people assuming it's about COVID.
Oh, gotcha.
So Chris, you tell me.
Hang on, I'm gonna see if I have Wi-Fi to pull it up, Mike. Hang on.
Well, let me get to it.
Here are the minutes.
I don't think I pulled out my minutes.
I have a copy if you want it. Mike, can you point me to where you are?
That page, sorry, superintendent's report, it's about the middle.
Yep.
Mike McClellan.
Follows up on the vaccination law.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that's clear enough given COVID, always everybody thinks COVID on everything. And I wasn't talking about COVID.
Oh, okay, so it's clear that I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
So,
I'm talking about the law that passed, it had to have all their shots to
yeah.
enter school, yeah.
Do you think there's a statement that would need to be added to make it more clear?
Maybe just put in parentheses non-COVID.
There you go.
You could
I'll
also,
always know it as LD 798, but.
you could also just put in parentheses the actual name of the statute, so if somebody wanted to look up the law, they could.
I think
That's
just
$7.98.
LD 798, yeah.
LD
My life,
97.
yeah. 798
Yep.
from 2 years ago.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Committee reports. I wanted to update the board before we get into, I don't think we have too much to share, but who is on what committee. And I think I've got it finalized. I have adult education is Jenny, correct? Finance, Pete, Scott, Marge, and Shar. Policy, Kate, Christine, and Mike. Facilities, Scott, Marge, Kate, and Mike. Negotiations, which is not happening, but Marge and Kate. Parliamentarian, Marge. PAS and WRVTC, Kate and Marge. Student representative, Al Potter. Technology, Christina. Kate doesn't go to vote. Math committee, Jenny. SEL, Kate. B, curriculum committee, Kate, Jenny, Christina, and Shar. So that's the update of assignments. And does anyone have anything to report out? There you go.
So the technology committee met and we finalized the survey that we've been working on for a couple of months. Just need a little polishing, send it out. We're getting some responses back, but it's not due until October 1st, so we haven't. So next meeting, we're going to sit down and sift through it. And we also got a presentation from Parent Square, which is an app-based communication platform that does a lot, to be perfectly honest. So I only got there like part of the presentation. It's, as far as I could tell, it doesn't replace some of the software that we have that sits on top of it, ideally to make things a little bit easier because staff and administrators and parents would all be on the same platform rather than different ones. And it has all sorts of options like custom calendars, so you could check off which activities your kids are in, and then you could have a calendar with all of like their clubs and events or whatever. There's like permission slips that the teachers can do and send out, and it's all signed digitally. So there was a lot of like nuts and bolts to it. So we're still going to debrief on that, but it was interesting start. So again, next time we meet in October, we'll start to sift through the survey results and then kind of where do we go from here technology-wise.
Perfect. Sounds exciting. Thank you. Anybody?
Facilities just met tonight. We went over across the street and we saw the new layout of where the new office is going to be. The vestibule that is not yet completed. Hopefully that will be completed in November when the glass gets in. There have been significant delays with construction over the course of this year. Everything looks like there was a lot of work that went into that building, and Bill and his guys all did a fantastic job, as well as the contractors that were in there. There's a lot of great new space and I heard quite a few pretty good suggestions tonight. You know, what can we do, what should we do, et cetera, and I think Bill was listening to some of those. Primarily I like the idea of an exit straight out of the nurses station. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, and I don't know if maybe we want to add a little blurb onto this agenda item moving forward, but the middle school building committee, I think there's going to be a fair amount to report out. What are we meeting? Maybe once a month or so, twice a month,
twice.
right? We got a meeting coming up tomorrow, 6 o'clock, I believe, right?
6 o'clock at the Wyndham High School.
Wyndham High School, in the library. All right, that's all I got.
Okay, Mr. Potter.
I don't have anything significant. We're halfway through our first 5-day week of school, which is exciting.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. The only real complaint I've heard from students is, the internet's been kind of slow recently, but I know they're working on that, so not too concerned. That's the only
Yeah.
real thing.
Okay,
I
perfect.
think Al also wants to add homecoming next week.
Oh yeah, homecoming's next week. Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, we're actually having a homecoming week, which is super exciting.
So what does that look like?
Next week we're having the normal dress-up days all throughout the week, and on Friday we're having a pep rally outside.
Oh my
So
gosh,
really cool.
that's great.
Yeah. So and a dance, hopefully. I think that one's run through the
Boosters, maybe? No.
the senior parents.
Oh.
What's that called?
Project Grad?
Yeah, Project Grad. Yeah, they're running that.
Is
so.
that outside too?
Yes, that will be
It's going to
outside.
be in the stadium.
In the stadium?
Yep.
Ooh, sounds terrific. That's
There's-
great.
Al, there's a rain date for that, right?
It's the next day.
It is the very next day?
Okay.
Is it right on the grass? Is Mike
That's a
going to be
great
putting
question.
something
It's
down?
not.
It's not. Yeah, I think it's behind the bleachers somewhere. Right?
It's
The
in
field behind
the.
it.
Sorry, Al, I didn't mean to. You finish and then I'll.
Yeah, I was asking Al.
I think, from what I heard, I think it's not on the actual football field. It's on the field behind it, from what I remember. But I could be wrong.
All right, never mind. I don't want to
So
talk
the
to you anymore.
bonfire's going to be on the field beyond it. There's
All right,
a bonfire,
bonfire's
I think,
there.
Thursday night, maybe, in which Mr. Drummond has been working with the Wind Fire Department to have somebody there. But it will be on the high jump pit area,
Okay.
which is a tarred area.
Cool.
Out in front of concessions, they'll be opening up that area for individuals. And I'll just also add, there, out of the 9 big schools in Cumberland County, everyone has canceled except for Wyndham High School. That's pretty cool. Their outside homecoming
Bravo.
events, other than Gorham is going to do an outside, can jam, kind of some games and things, but they're the only ones currently. So I know people are working really, really hard in a COVID atmosphere to make things happen for kids. So we
That's exciting.
appreciate them doing that. But that's next Friday night, Saturday night?
Yep. Another cool thing that we're doing new this year is we're starting last year we did something called the Change Wars, where each class tried to bring in change to raise money. And it was kind of a competition, and the class who won, all the money from the school went to that organization. And this year we're doing something with the Patrick Dempsey organization.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
each class is going to be raising money, competing with each other. And then as a school, we're competing against other schools in the area. And all the money goes to the Patrick Dempsey Center.
Wow, that's terrific.
Mr. Hartney wants to know if Mr. Dempsey's going to be. She just whispered it in my ear.
Olivier wants to know too.
Is he coming to accept a donation?
Let's hope, yeah.
Could ask him.
Yeah. That's terrific news. Thanks. Thanks, Al.
She really whispered it in my ear. Sorry, Kristen.
To check the recording.
Any other committee reports? I know policy is scheduled to meet in a couple of weeks to get back in the saddle, so we'll update you soon.
Vocational doesn't have their first meeting till October.
Okay, perfect. Did I miss anybody? Nope, okay. Superintendent's report.
Sure, so a couple things that I want to report out on tonight. So 4 o'clock this afternoon, while I was en route to go to our tour, Maine Department of Health and Human Services put up their official website for vaccination rates for staff members. So I don't have the link. Normally board members, I'd send that out as a quick link to all of you. I don't have it, but if anyone's interested, they can log on. I think any of the local news stations right now are providing the link, and you can look at vaccination rates for each of the buildings, as well as what they call central operations. And central operations for us includes central office and our transportation department, and then any of the itinerants that go across. So if anyone is interested, they can go on and look and see what the vaccination rates are for staff for each of our buildings and for district operations. Also tonight, just want to put out a big thank you to our school nurses. They have been working tirelessly, and for several buildings, they've not only been working their work weeks, they worked the holiday weekend for Labor Day. They also worked last weekend. They are taking calls from families, working with families, working with physicians, working on contact tracing, and also working with our building administrators long outside of their work hours. And we are very appreciative. We have an outstanding group of nurses in RSU 14 that are very professional. They take their jobs very, very seriously, and they are working numbers and numbers of hours. I was very happy to have today not any cases to report out on. What is really making a difference for us is that when a nurse receives a call, they've got to go through a verification process. They then have to work with the school administrators to start pulling schedules and to work on a whole variety of things behind the scenes in order to make things happen. I'm just so appreciative of this group. We've been meeting weekly. We had a nice chance to meet Friday afternoon with our school physician and with all of our nurses, and it was just nice to spend some time with the school physician going over what we've done to date. She was praising the district for all that we've done to keep kids safe. She was also sharing what she was seeing within her practice through Maine Health, and just some of the concerns and other things that physicians and doctors' offices and hospitals are now seeing with youth cases. But it was nice to also have some time with her to answer some of the questions that we have. But a huge shout out to our nurses for the work that they've done. We are in the process of using some ESSER funds. Number one is to hire a support person for a period of time, and that person simply, it may sound crazy, but to answer the phone. Because every time that phone call goes to the nurse, they want to make sure that they are being attentive. There's a lot of questions that are coming in, and so someone who can help you out with some of those calls. And so we're working on a central spot for that. And then also having a support person who can help with contact tracing and specifically accessing all the different databases to make sure that we're capturing all the right kids. Each and every case, nurses do talk to CDC or Maine Department of Education and then to CDC, especially now that Windham High School is considered to be an outbreak school. And remember, to be an outbreak, it's 3 or more cases within a certain time frame, which if I remember correctly is a 14-day. Doesn't take long for any school to be an outbreak school. And you have to go another 14 days without cases to move yourself out of outbreak. So it's quite a process. So they've also been the frontline persons for those. So I'm just so appreciative for their work. They are the only ones, or I think few staff who have regularly texting me on weekends and nights. I know that they're working those long hours. Also, Mike, I don't want to steal your thunder, but we have some important Raymond forums coming up, so maybe you're going to handle that in board roundtable, or do you want me
However
to
you want to do it, yeah, either way.
Okay. We had a chance last night, Kate, Shar, and Mike and I had a chance to meet with the Raymond Select Board. In fact, I got a chance to sit right here for last night's meeting and had a chance to talk about the opportunity. And specifically the opportunity is that we're in the process of building a new building for what was put in an application for Windham Middle School. The state has said, we'd like you to go back to Raymond one more time and see whether or not Raymond is interested in being part of this. And so part of last night's meeting, thank you to Mike for setting that up, and also Mike for representing the RSU 14 board in presenting last night, but really getting some feedback from Raymond. Is this a process that you want to be part of or not? And we were very clear last night, this is not a binding, as far as the RSU is not looking to close down your school. If you want to be part of it, great. If you don't want to be part of it, we'll continue to operate Raymond, Jordan Small Middle School. So good discussion. October 4th and 5th. I think it's a Monday night and a Tuesday night at 6:30 in the Jordan Small Gym. There'll be informational. There'll be an informational presentation that will be done by the Raymond board members and myself. And we'll be there. The Raymond Select Board will be there as well. Be there to answer questions that people might have. Select Board's going to be taking notes and be collecting information. And I think, Mike, if I'm correct, October 12th, Select Board will take a vote whether or not to proceed in that direction. And then the RSU 14 Board will need to take a look at that vote. I have a meeting now scheduled with State Construction Office on October 14th to look at those results and to see what direction that we're going to be heading in as far as planning for that project. So it should be an interesting way to get some feedback and to get some ideas and to see where the community lands on this important decision. It's a great opportunity. And we want to make sure that people fully understand what that opportunity means. The last thing I want to include in my report is, love the school lunch participation. We are seeing numbers right now that we have never seen before. Part of it is the high quality program which Jeannie operates, but part of it also is it's a great opportunity for families to have free lunch and breakfast every single day. And so numbers are up. It is putting a strain on us personnel-wise. With the increase and making sure that all those meals are prepped, done, and materials and foods are in. But big thank you to our food service group. They are knocking it out of the park, and kids are responding and families are responding. Yep. Oh, sorry. It's okay. I think I've got to turn the TV back
You all
on.
set?
Oh, Christine's got one more thing to add.
Lovely. Would love to hear from you.
Oh, you just did power. So I'll start chatting. Hopefully it pops up here soon. I'm sharing with you all, there it is, a flyer. Thanks to our friend Melissa at the Wyndham Eagle who worked on this. We've pushed this out to our folks, our friends here in Raymond. We're trying to get the word out. This started with a conversation over 2 years ago around homelessness and poverty, and it morphed into discussions around mental health and schools and local organizations, resources coming together to talk about mental health and the needs of our community members, young and old. So on October 7th and 8th, there will be from 8 to noon a virtual mental health summit. All are welcome. Laura Morris from Be the Influence and Lorraine Glausick, I hope I'm saying her last name correctly, I think Glozick, I believe, our new Community Connections Coordinator. They're working on getting the word out. Friday, you'll see this in our local publications, and you'll see it again in a couple of weeks, all sorts of messaging. But essentially, we're trying to have a wide range of topics offered. And you see here many different presenters, folks from NAMI, Be the Influence, Opportunity Alliance, City of Portland Public Health Department, Maine Resilience Building Network, American Lung Association, Maine Behavioral Health, a lot of big organizations that do tremendous work and really trying to help people understand what resources are out there and engage in this conversation. If they're struggling, there are sessions that might really speak to them. So a lot of choice. The two keynote speakers we're really excited about. John T. Broderick is a former Chief Justice of the New Hampshire Supreme Court. He will be speaking about a very personal story and then really engaging all of us in this idea of community working together to combat mental health challenges. And the other guest speaker on the 8th, we'll kick it off, Matt Bellis. He's a motivational speaker in brain science, neuroscience, wizard, brilliant speaker. He's amazing. He's got the science background connected with humor, connected with substance use and the impact neurological, physiological level. So he will be kicking off the day, but then people have all of these choice sessions that they can go to. And again, going to an area of interest in particular. So we really welcome all community members. And thanks to Marge for starting this conversation. And a lot of people have gone into putting this together. So if you could help us get the word out, that would be great. And those listening, if you're still up, please participate in any or all of it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Let's move into board roundtable. Anyone have any comments? Yep.
I saw something today that I hadn't been aware of that I just thought was really good. Jersey Mike's, the sub shop in Wyndham, they opened today, and I don't know who arranged it, but 100% of their sales, not their profits, but 100% of their sales today was going to go to the Manchester school. So what a way to introduce yourself to the community. So kudos.
Anybody else? Mike?
Well, I'll follow up on what Chris talked about, and I guess Raymond people take note. So we did meet in this room last night, and Char and Kate, myself, and Chris backing us up, and very engaging talk. The select board, as we talked about 2 weeks ago, we really wanted to go there basically with a poker face. That basically we got asked, we're sharing the information, and Raymond decide. And the select board was just as clear. That's how they feel. That they also want to set a process up that the citizens of Raymond can participate in, give feedback. As Chris described, what we came up with was that we'll have these 2 events to reach multiple people. We also put our emails out for that as well. And then give that information to the select board, who will vote and make a recommendation given what they hear from these 2 feedback sessions. And then they'll pass that to us, and then we'll make a decision. And everybody knows, however it goes is how it's going to go. So it's October 4th and 5th at Jordan Small at 6:30. And I guess the only other thing I would ask or mention is today, well, it happened last night. So today we wanted to get some publicity out really quick because it is coming quick. And Sue Look is the town clerk for Raymond. And she actually told us last night she was going on vacation last night. So she came into work this morning at 9 and sat there. Well, we took about 2 hours to draft the paragraph, and God bless her. And she, before she left, she got it on Facebook and all over the place, and it's going to be in the newspaper. So it's our hope that everybody hears about this and can attend if they possibly can. And then the other thing is our emails are in the publicity, so feel free to contact us, Raymond people, as well, if you don't think you can get there.
We're using listserv, right?
Yep.
Good. That'll go to everybody in
Yeah.
Raymond.
Yeah.
Perfect. Anybody else for board roundtable? Yes.
Yes, please. So I took some quality time this weekend to go through all of the notices that have been sent out for the last year on COVID cases in the RSU. So, I'm new to the board, but for some reason, I never deleted the emails. So I went through all of them and put together some information, some statistics that generated some questions for me, which I would like to ask. So of the schools, Wyndham High School, and this is based on the data that I had in my email, so I may be off by a few. Wyndham High School had 52 positive cases, Wyndham Primary 44, Wyndham Middle School was 39, Manchester was 9, Raymond Elementary was 8, and Jordan Small was 7. So, so I thought that was interesting that Wyndham Primary was ahead of Wyndham Middle. I just thought that was an interesting anomaly.
Extra grade level.
Oh, okay, so there's more kids, okay. And then from October 30th, 2020, which was the first email I had, to June 13th, 2021, which was the last one for that session, there was 135 events reported, 72 of which resulted in no quarantine of anyone, so that's 53%. Did not result in a quarantine. 8/25/21 to 9/13/21, there's been 17 events, 10 of which resulted in no quarantine, so that's 59% that did not result in any quarantine. And I realize that 8/25 to 9/13 is a much smaller scope of data than the entire last school year, but I just found it's interesting that we've had only a 6% increase in no quarantines, even though everybody's supposed to be masked.
Can I just speak to the cases?
Absolutely.
I connected most of those cases that we have seen have been where you see a typical no quarantine previous year was somebody was already in quarantine because someone in the family had it.
Okay.
And they weren't actually in school at a time in which they were, what's the word that I'm looking for? During their contagious period.
Gotcha. Okay. So there's been the 17 cases since August 25th. 544 people were identified as close contacts. That includes student and staff. 323 were exempt from quarantine. 221 were not exempt from quarantine. So one of my first questions is why? Just generally speaking, what constitutes somebody
Are you
not being
talking
exempt?
this year or last
Yep,
year?
since August 25th.
I'd have, what would create someone to be exempt or not? We haven't actually had that. If I could go to my spreadsheet, I don't, those numbers seem high.
Okay, it could be. I could be
But
wrong.
typically someone is not exempt from quarantine if they've not been vaccinated,
Okay.
or if the real number that you look for, and this is, I think, what we probably should have come out with first, is that anybody who's within 6 feet for 15 minutes or greater is considered to have to quarantine. And
Right.
the universal masking does reduce that down to 3 feet within 15 minutes.
Okay.
So that's part of the difference in it. But as far as number of close contacts, I'd be happy, Shar, to follow up tomorrow with my
Okay.
spreadsheet, because I keep track of that as well.
Okay. So some other questions, and I won't belabor it, but out of all the exposures in the RSU, how many positives resulted from those exposures in the last year? Just off the top of your head.
How many, as far as transmission in the schools?
Yeah.
Maybe 1 or 2.
Okay. Do you know how many of those folks that resulted in a positive were actually got sick or hospitalized?
We've had hospitalized students and we've had very sick people, so yes.
Okay. But they didn't necessarily get COVID from being in school. They got it someplace else.
I don't know that.
Okay. I noticed on the notification that came out on December 11th, 2020, that there was information started to be included about suicide prevention. And just wondering what prompted that inclusion of that information.
It
Was
was
there an event or?
No, it was actually a recommendation from some board members on how do we actually include additional information for families with some of the mental health issues that we were hearing. And so that is when that was included on that portion.
Okay. On the more recent notices, I noticed that there's a line in there that says, unvaccinated students and staff cannot be exempted from community quarantine through universal masking. And so when I first read that, I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. But then I realized that I'm assuming what it really means, or what the intent is, community meeting outside the RSU, not.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't exempt you from community sports, community activities
Gotcha.
through the main CDC.
All right. So I'm just, if I misunderstood what it was referring to, so I'm just asking maybe change of verbiage or add something, because
I
it
think
really was
part of
confusing for me.
part of being careful, and I think we heard it from tonight. It's not my role, and I think it's not the role of the community to make a judgment on someone's vaccination status.
Right.
And so this is clearly, for me, my intent in communicating this was to put out just an understanding of the rules and the process and protocols that are used. It's not specifically calling out that these people were having to quarantine because they weren't a vaccinated individual.
Right, I understand. I'm just the way the word community is used, I was thinking the RSU community, and I was, but it doesn't mean the RSU community, it means outside that community, the greater community. So I was just thinking that it could be reworded somehow to make it more clear what it's referring to. And then the last public meeting that we had before the board voted on the mask mandate, there were some Wyndham High School students who spoke, and they were talking about wanting to be able to go to all their social events and the prom and all that stuff, which is very important. And it got me to thinking, you know, these kids are wanting the mask mandate so they can do all the social stuff, but what are we doing as an organization and as a group of people to make sure they're educated about what they should be doing when they're not masked in the school? Because I can tell you, high school students are not going to be masked when they're hanging out in the woods doing stuff they're not supposed to be doing. or somebody's basement. And so they're potentially bringing stuff into the school system. So are we doing anything from an education standpoint or an expectation standpoint that they're going to behave themselves outside of school? And I know that's a difficult topic to try to address, but are we doing anything, you know? So they're masked for 6 to 8 hours a day in school, but for the other 20 or 18 hours a day, they're not. What are we doing about that? It seems rather, in my opinion, hypocritical that they have to mask in school, but they can go to Walmart with 400 people and not be masked. And I know that's not under our purview, but what are we doing about education?
It's not our purview for what kids do outside of school. Community letter wise, probably if you got into some of the January, February letters, there were a couple of letters that talked about the cases that we were seeing were coming from the community, which ultimately was impacting other students because of that. I don't know specifically the conversations. I know there's some strong feelings with people as far as whether or not you're vaccinated, and so not wanting to have stronger conversations about that. Whether or not there's strong conversations going on about what you people do on their individual free time and how it impacts others. I would have to get a sampling from the school administrators as far as anecdotally what they're hearing for those conversations.
Okay.
But yes, the actions of the community does impact what happens in schools.
The people that are currently being excused from quarantining because of direct exposure through contact tracing, are we tracking them to see if they become COVID positive or become ill, like within a certain amount of time after they're exposed, but we haven't told them they have to quarantine outside the school?
They are notified. The nurses continue to follow that. Ultimately, part of it is also the CDC should be following up, and all those names have to be provided to the CDC as part of that follow-up time.
Okay. We are entering flu season, although flu seems to have disappeared over the last year. How is the school going to be handling positive RSV, strep, flu cases, etc. in this fall and winter season?
I would need to go back to our school nurses and our school physician to see how they want us to handle that.
Okay.
I'm not a physician. I don't claim to be one. I'm not a YouTube physician. I will get that from our school physician.
Okay, thank you. And have we had any more discussions about remote learning for children that aren't able to mask for 6 or 8 hours a day or during their quarantine periods?
We've been working on setting up remote for those kids that have to be in quarantine. We do not have the personnel to run a full remote program. Okay. There are remote options that are available through charters and other things, but staffing-wise, we just do not have the staff in order to be able to do that.
Okay. That was it. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have not heard back from the chairperson McGraffy. I don't know. You guys all got the email. I reached out to Chris and I asked him as far as these COVID rules and who actually set up these rules, because they don't seem to make any sense to me. There's a lot of people in the community that they don't make any sense to either, as far as quarantining close contacts. It just does not make any sense at all. So I reached out to 2 committees in the Maine legislature, and as soon as I get a reply back, I will be more than happy to share that information with the rest of the board. So.
Thank you. Anybody else? May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.